Welcome to the Imperial 80s. It's good to be with you all. How are you doing, M2May?
Doing all right, a little gloomy, which is perfect for this dark ass movie, this dark ass 80s masculinity petrified film. But yeah, I'm all right.
Hiram may still be out celebrating with the Knicks. We're not sure.
I think he is.
He's not here yet, but I'm sure he will be joining us momentarily. So that's why we're a couple minutes late starting. But we may have had the time confused or something like that. But it's all good. I'm sure he will be joining us for this. Yeah, I mean, this one was obviously one that was circled on our list from the very beginning. It's just forever. a huge it did take a long time. 50 episodes. This is the 50th episode.
Yeah.
I mean, but somewhat intentionally, because I think we wanted to save some of the big ones for different points in doing this series, and so
spread them out.
Here we are, and hopefully we will have the Arnold Schwarzenegger's biggest fan join us in a little bit to talk about.
He'll come in like Arnold comes in, like
he might.
We'll have to give him like some beams and steam, though he will be clothed. We'll make sure of that. Oh man.
I look forward to talking about all of that with you all. That's it's a very, very 80s film. There's so many things in it that you're like, this is so of the period, and we've seen in other films that we've already done. But interesting, I mean, this comes out 84. So it actually, I think, in a certain way, like sets the tone of a lot of stuff that comes out afterwards.
Yeah. And it's also like, I mean, we'll talk about it. I think it's also an interesting culmination of like, I think types of movies that certain people were trying to make into mega hits and they never were really able to. And then like Terminator becomes that mega hit, right? In that way, which I think then inevitably leads to, by the 90s and the aughts, like science fiction becoming a very this kind of like action sci-fi becoming like a mainstream thing, So I think Terminator definitely is like a culmination of an older period and a ground zero for like a newer period. You're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, the whole obsession with the nuclear holocaust and fallout and stuff like that was a very 80s thing. I mean, and I think there are some interesting politics to this film, which we'll get into. I mean, obviously this is probably more than anything that we've done so far. Yeah, I would say so. Like, it is the most concerned about artificial intelligence. I mean, Blade Runner, which we did just a couple of weeks ago, is in the same, vein there.
But it's more like pondering. It's more like a pondering and an emotional, or like Short Circuit too, is more like these like emotional touches for artificial intelligence, right? Trying to ponder like, what is humanity, so forth. Though this is like AI.
Yeah, this is death. Just the machines are gonna kill us all.
AI is death.
Yeah, totally. There's not much pondering going on here.
No, I don't like. Is there ever? I mean, I guess probably by 2, they try to give the machine a bit of an emotional arc when he's like the good machine Arnold, but like, this one, nah, man, it's the death bot.
Yeah, Arnold is not a character in this, like, which is interesting. I mean, let's go ahead. We could do our memories of this, and then when Hiram joins with us, then he can catch up to speed on some of it. But go ahead first.
Yeah, I mean, look, this movie's kind of attached to my childhood as much as any of the movies that we've talked about. Um, I remember because I was 4 when this came out, but I don't remember how old I was. But my mother, she had all the cable stuff, and it probably was Cinemax. One night, I fell asleep on the couch, right, and I woke up, and that final scene where the Terminator like comes, he's like when you actually see the Terminator body come out of the fire wreckage, right? And like Linda Hamilton and Reese have to like run from it. I literally was like, it's like what I woke up to, and I was like 7 or 8, and I was just like, and I remember just watching it, right? And when she smashes him, I was like, and I did not know the name of the movie either. Right, I was like, I saw it, and I couldn't really tell my mom. Hey, mom, could you tell me this movie with a monster as a robot? She's like, what the fuck you talking about? Like, and then I think within like a year or two, this someone in my family was like Terminator, and then I put 2 and 2 together, and I would watch it. I'd watch it, and then Terminator 2 would come out. Was that 91? I think 91 when Terminator 2 would come out. So that I don't know if people remember about Terminator 2. That had like a 2-year rollout. That was one of like the longest like rollouts. I remember there was like the old preview it was like an old trailer for Arnold. So when that got rolled out, I was just watching Terminator over and over and over again, wherever I could find it. And I was obsessed. And to a certain degree, when that comes out, Akira, which people have saying requesting that we should do. I was watching Akira at about 10, probably. Um, I mean, I don't know what else is there. There's probably other film. Mad Max. I was a big Road Warrior watcher. We should watch that. Talk about that. Even Beyond Thunderdome as well. I was a big watcher of like apocalypse movies. From like preteen, I was obsessed with apocalypse movies. I had a bit of like the Space Shuttle Challenger. I remember fucked me up. So like things of like blowing up. Like I had a lot of like nightmares of like nuclear shit, like all the type of stuff. So I was like obsessed with this movie, and through like I'd say like the only thing that stopped me watching this movie all the time was when I got into like new Hollywood 60s and 70s, like late 60s and 70s stuff. Then I got disinterested in like Arnold and kind of like Braun, and I got into like mid 70s nihilism movies and good actors and shit like that. But I was obsessed, and it was like a thing. But on the flip side, I would still watch Terminator a lot. I never got into the rest of the series though. I thought after 3, I thought from 3 on it got terrible, and I tried to watch a lot of them. I think the last one that I tried was the Christian Bale one where he actually sends his dad back, and that shit was so fucking bad. It was so terrible, and like I just never could get into any of the lore. I just thought it was pretty terrible. I don't really love 2. When we get to Imperial 80s, we can talk about why. I find 2 to be a bit bleh. I mean, I definitely got into when I was 11, but it didn't last very long to me. But this one, like, it definitely had a lot of purchase, and I still would say I would casually watch it for quite a while. Like, but I think the last like maybe like handful of times I've watched it, it's been interesting to think about it. Um, how it situates in the 80s to now, so forth and so on.
Yeah, I mean, my relationship to this movie and this franchise is weird, and I wish Hiram was here because he'd call me a nerd or whatever, shut-in kid or something like that. But part of it was that my parents definitely were not letting me watch this in the 80s, at least. I mean, one, I don't even know why, other than probably just the name, the Terminator, would be like, my mom would be like, fuck no. Like, not in those words, excuse my French, but she would be, there's no way, right? Like, and my parents, like we were talking about, we're gonna do Big next week, and we were talking about that, which I did see in the theaters. And my parents did have like a process on films where they would check in with like other families that they were close to and be like, is this something that's okay for our 6-year-old or whatever to watch, right? And like this one just would be kind of a non-starter. So I mean, like you, I did eventually see it like on cable, at a friend's house and stuff. I remember much more because I was so little when this one came out. Like I was 2 when it came out. I remember much more the rollout of Terminator 2 and all of the hype around Terminator 2. And I had friends, and we've talked about this before, especially like when we did Predator, that were very like the Terminator versus Predator discourse at school, like which guy, who are you going to be in this like post-apocalyptic fight that we're going to have on the playground, right? RoboCop being thrown in there too, right? That stuff was yeah, absolutely. I think every child that grew up in the 80s was around that kind of stuff. So in a certain way, it was like totally inescapable, even though I hadn't seen it, which is also something that I think kids nowadays really have almost no frame of reference for. Maybe with a few things, like I can think like I don't let my youngest child watch like Deadpool, right? Because it is so freaking crass and homophobic and sexual stuff throughout it and all that kind of stuff. But like nowadays, a lot of the movies are made at PG-13, and parents kind of know that a PG-13 movie like is going to have violence, but not like overt sex usually. And this is sort of like, I'm not saying this as though it's good at all, right? But this is sort of an acceptable compromise that I think almost every parent has made at this point, right? Of like, we'll take our kids to go see Marvel, right? Because they'll see some DoD sponsored, like, cartoonish violence or whatever. But we also know it's going to be some kind of like, family acceptable standard that has been set within American society. And I mean, I think that conversation maybe is more easy to talk about once we get to like the 90s and especially the 2000s, because I think it's really like the 2000s that kind of becomes formalized. But in the 80s, as we've talked about, it wasn't formalized at all, right? And so lots of parents were like, "Yeah, I'm taking my kid to go see Terminator or Alien." There was a hilarious reel I think we sent. You and me and Hiram were sending around a few weeks ago of, and maybe I'll try to find it in a minute, of like parents talking about taking their kid to see Alien, like right outside the theater, right? And the parents being like, "Yeah, I think you should see it. There's stuff out there like that, you know?" And then the kids being like, they'd be like, "Did you like the movie?" And the kid's like, "No." And you could tell he's like totally traumatized by it, right? So like that one was a big standard for parenting. And I'm not even like judging these different decisions, because also you didn't have a whole lot of information typically about movies before you had the rating, but even the rating system in the 80s was so screwy that a lot of stuff that was PG would be rated R now. Then a lot of it would be at least PG-13, but they didn't have PG-13 for a period of the 80s, and even still, it was not as defined, right, by the rating system, like what the distinctions were between G, PG, PG-13, R, once they even put them into place fully. So, yeah, people made all kinds of decisions around that stuff. And anyway, my parents, they did not, The Predator, Terminator, like those are movies that I saw basically in the 90s once I got access to cable, and typically had to watch at my friends' houses and stuff. Um, but Terminator 2 in particular, like you said, it was a huge rollout. There was all of this stuff about the liquid metal and the use of CGI in the film that was like on mainstream news and like 60 Minutes and like shows like that, right? Talking about the tech in the film and how amazing and groundbreaking it was and all of this stuff. And it won awards too, didn't it? Like, I feel like it won at least like graphic effects and like
I
all
think the
that kind of
special
stuff.
effects awards it won,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, and so, I absolutely, I knew who Arnold Schwarzenegger was. I saw him. We've talked about some of the other films that, we saw him in this decade and in the 90s. This film obviously is, it's interesting, and this is something I'd love to ask Hiram and maybe you. I mean, Conan I know comes before this, the first one, right? But like it didn't it didn't like solidify him as a potential like real marketable movie star. This really is cited as the film that does. Obviously, this film also makes James Cameron like, really. And so the fact that this film we can make responsible for Arnold Schwarzenegger and becoming a movie star and James Cameron becoming what he's become, I think is enough to say this is possibly one of the worst. Like if we could go back in time and stop this movie from happening, like perhaps we should, right? But
We'd be the
yeah,
Terminators.
we'd be the Terminators. We go back in
smash,
time.
smash camera net and just get him stopped. Smash industrial light and magic. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is. Terminator. It's interesting. I mean, and we'll get into like the making of it is because this also wasn't a movie that actually Arnold wanted to do. At least he did not want to play the Terminator. He actually didn't have much interest in it at first when he was kind of shaping his career. Because he was trying to become a leading man, I think, in a more like classical sense. And we can get into that, but it ended up probably being the best. Well, no, not probably ended up being like the best choice that for him, because I think he was able to. Because the guy, I mean, let's be real, Arnold's acting chops are very limited, so I think he had to kind of learn through certain types of roles, like how to like, and directors I think had to learn how to like pretty much write and direct around his limitations, right?
So it's great because he gets to play a freaking robot, right? Like,
Exactly. And who can says one line and he has like his voice, "I'll be back." Like just like he has like no tonality at times. Plasma rifle, it's just like it's so hilarious. And like with like, and it's funny like in a two shot when an actor's really acting, like, hey, you got the gun. Okay, Uzi my 9mm. It's just like the guy has no ability to just like relax, right? But it's like really, really, really so funny. So yeah, let's get to like the making of it a little bit. So there's like a couple I think of like interesting angles to go from. I'll start I'll start with Cameron, who like a lot of these guys is very interesting. And Cameron comes from a tree that we actually haven't really talked about in kind of like movie making. But Cameron's from Ontario. He was born and raised there. Seems like a kind of like working middle class family ish type of thing going on there. Um, then he went there, but he moved to like California, I think when he was like in high school or something like that. And then he went to college for like a little bit, and he's pretty much he was like a dropout, he said. And like he said he got like a truck driver job. He was like a janitor, and he was like doing LSD and lots of drugs and things like that. So he definitely was like a bit of a burnout, in the 70s. So I do think this is interesting where like people were kind of like involved in politics and things like that. You have kind of also these like people who were like devoid of any kind of connections to those things. And Cameron was definitely one of those people, kind of just like individualists, hitting the road, working jobs, doing drugs, right? So forth and so on. Um, but he said during this period, he started learning and thinking about different types of like special effects, and he was reading, right? Like things like optical printing, front screen projection. He got really into like film school, like film technology stuff, right? Um, and then he said he saw Star Wars and he saw that kind of like thing that was like becoming more possible. So he was like, let me move on to there, out of there, right? And he quit his job and he's would enter the film industry. So he made a short that he says he borrowed from a bunch of dentists, which I didn't go further enough to read like how he knew these dentists, but he made a short. Said he like basically made a short. I've never actually seen it though. I've heard of it for many years. And he was like a production assistant for a while and like looking around at different movies. And then he started working for a guy named Roger Corman as a model maker. Now, Roger Corman is a really important person in film industry that a lot of people don't know about him. There's many ways that a lot of filmmakers that like Martin Scorsese, Peter Bogdanovich, Carl Franklin, there's others that I'm forgetting who first worked with Corman. And Corman's whole thing was kind of like the B movie, right? He wanted to make these movies that were like kind of exciting, things you would not see in Hollywood, right? So lots of things with sex and violence and monsters and so forth and so on. It was like the height of like the Roger Corman movie, but he also was big into like who he thought were like young whiz kids, right? These like really interesting people, and I'm going to give them their shot. And that's why, like, a lot of young directors who couldn't find a certain inwood to Hollywood in a particular region or couldn't get there yet would go to someone like Corman because he would give them a certain amount of freedom. Granted, though, not really also, right? It was also like, there's a lot of like talk about how the Corman stuff worked. I mean, it's definitely it's a lot of history that like, honestly, I won't do right now, but it's very, very interesting. So Cameron was doing a lot of like miniature model stuff with Corman, which we'll talk about when he meets the woman who helped produce this, who was also his ex-wife. That's the other thing. Cameron and his marriages, bro. Like this dude is a trip. Like they're so like connected to his career. It's kind of wild. He was hired as a visual direct effects director for Piranha. And then he ended up like directing Piranha 2, The Spawning, right? Someone left that project. And he said during that time, he got the idea for Terminator. He says he had like a dream. I mean, Cameron's also a bit of a weirdo in like that kind of annoying way, right? He like had a dream. And in the dream, he saw a kind of like thing of someone like slashing people. And he said he was inspired by John Carpenter's Halloween. And he said he wanted to first do like a slasher style type film, right? But like in the world of the Outer Limits. And the Outer Limits thing becomes very interesting in a little bit. But he actually said this, right? He has this story that he claims that like he told it to his agent and the agent didn't like it and he fired him. Well, no, I mean, okay, I'm sure there were other factors. Maybe the agent wasn't very big, and that's why he could fire them. But yeah, and he kind of like worked in this whole thing. And as that was kind of developing, you also had Mad Max had came out. Mad Max 2 was coming out. So it was a kind of a thing that, was like developing a kind of interest in these like dystopian things. The slasher thing was like interesting to people as well. In comes a woman named Gail Ann Hurd, who she was Roger Corman's assistant for a long time, but she actually has ended up becoming a huge producer in her own right. Most people will either not know or know her as one of the executive producers of the Walking Dead TV show, right? She famously, and Cameron talks about this, and this is very interesting, he sold the script to her for $1 for Terminator. And that was with a guarantee that he would direct it. So she basically said, if you give it to me for $1, I'll make sure this happens, right? And they went through a long series of things with it, where things happen here and there, and they got it. There was like different types of different like, deals, and eventually landed at Orion Pictures, where that eventually made it, and a lot of different things that are kind of not that important. One of the interesting things to think about is that Cameron did marry Heard like the year after Terminator came out. They were married until he married Catherine Bigelow in '89, another person whose films we have to do. If you people know Catherine Bigelow, The Hurt Locker, Strange Days, Blue Steel, a movie that we should do. And then he left her for Linda Hamilton in Terminator. I mean, like, dude, the dude is just so sloppy. It's hilarious. But yeah, so there's that. And that's how the film was eventually got made, right? And it got into this thing. But it comes out of this kind of smaller, it kind of was someone we talk about RoboCop. There was like a kind of off Hollywood world, and they were all trying to make kind of certain types of films. A lot of them had this, seriously B movie aesthetic. Cameron, I think, wanted a kind of a both. This movie definitely had a lot more money than movies he made before with like Corman. They invested a lot more money. They had a lot more people like involved in kind of doing it. It was seen as like slightly like elevating like the film in terms of just budget. I mean, it still has the same characteristics, but just the actual budget. Those other movies just don't have money, right? So they're shooting those things like super, super, super quick, right? And trying to like get in and out of it. A couple of like, go ahead.
There's something to say. So I just wanted to say a little bit about Hemdale Film Corporation. So this is it, like you say, like this off Hollywood. So it's a US and UK based corporation. Originally, it starts as a talent agency for bands like Black Sabbath and Yes, right? For folks who know like progressive rock, Yes. And they end up developing, so you're right about Orion, but Orion does like distribution, right? So their distro deals become between Orion and like TriStar in the 80s, and this is
I mean, they're
how
so
they get
they're so complicated. They're like these like wild corporate. It's like hard to track. There's so many people involved.
Yeah, so they end up making like their big films are this, Platoon, and The Last Emperor. They do a lot of other stuff that's like not, actually I think they're involved in Hoosiers as well. But a lot of like B movies and movies that are just not that, The Howling 2, Your Sister's a Werewolf, I think they're also involved in Return of the Living Dead. But it is kind of it's almost in that canon sphere of like occasionally they're I would give them more credit than canon because I don't think canon at any point ever produced anything that won an Academy Award, and they actually do in a couple of instances.
Runaway Train was nominated for 2 Academy Awards for the actors. We should do Runaway Train though. Yeah. Runaway Train's a wild movie with John Voight and Eric Roberts. We haven't done an Eric Roberts movie. That's a shame. Wait. Side note.
No, all good. But they get into all of these different lawsuits, right, over rights and different things, and eventually they fall apart in like 91, go for bankruptcy. And actually like the transition between the first Terminator and Terminator 2 is largely like Cameron fighting to get the rights. It's also why it takes so long. Get the rights away from Hemdale to get it towards like a real Hollywood, place where he can get a real budget and this kind of stuff too, because they were fairly low budget, a lot of their stuff. Obviously this film is very low budget, and you can see it within the film comparatively. I mean, it's still like almost 7 million, but like, that's not very much to make a movie even in the 80s. But yeah, I just wanted to say that a little bit. They are kind of like a little niche film house. And this was a huge thing for them in terms of, creating some legitimacy for them for a brief period of time until they collapsed.
Yeah, it's very similar to our conversation about RoboCop. Like if people are interested in like thinking about that era, like go watch like that, like the part we talked about the development of that, because even like Lethal Weapon and things like that, like the 80s coming out of the 70s and how the 70s made movies and then going into the 80s, and then you had Star Wars come, and the way kind of capital was moving with 80 in the 80s, they kind of were like in these positions where they didn't quite know what was happening. So they were trying in real time to kind of like figure out. So you have small companies doing this, moving these things out, moving this stuff around and kind of figuring out. But what Jay's point is really real. By the 90s, all these companies were either bought or gone.
Yeah. And that's kind of what happened too. It's not like the people who created this like died like destitute or something like that, right? Like it is sort of like, as we'll get into Wall Street, later on, it's like the buyout, strip down, and like repurposing and buying up their intellectual property,
out,
right?
Got jobs. I mean, look at Heard. I mean, she ended up going into a major Hollywood career, right? Corman, she pretty much was like Corman's protege. She was young, so she was able to kind of move up into that because she had all the connections to all the young filmmakers and they liked her. And so they were like, let's work with her. And then Corman, he just kind of does his thing and he kind of lives because he was already like kind of like a certain kind of person. And I'm sure he probably, I don't know who, how they felt about him within Hollywood. Couple of other things. So like the casting is hilarious. So Arnold originally wanted to play Reese, right? Which is just like thinking about it. What up, Hiram?
Yo, so sorry I'm late. Had a little family emergency thing I had to take care of, but everything's all good. And so really sorry for that.
All good, man. Glad everybody's all right. Good to see you.
I'll just finish this part and then we can talk about your early experiences with Terminator. Okay. But yeah, you'll love this. So Arnold wanted to play Reese, and like and Cameron was like, at first he was like, because he saw Conan, he was like, yeah, this not gonna work, right? And he was like trying to get like other people to get interested in it. No one was really interested in the role. Cameron actually he had approached Mel Gibson to play the Terminator and Stallone to play the Terminator. They both turned it down. The hilarious one, and this is a real story. There was a real story, is O.J. Simpson tried to play the Terminator. He actually lobbied for it. And like the thing about it is you have to have a pre-murders of the 90s OJ brain to understand, because people don't know OJ was really trying to become an actor. In like, go watch was it the 5-part doc about it. They talk about it. He was trying to become an actor in the Naked Gun movies, all that type of stuff. He was really, really trying. But yeah. He was floated. They were like, no, absolutely not OJ Simpson. But like, think about like how cosmically odd that is. OJ Simpson as the Terminator. It's just I'm cracking up, right? So there's this story that Cameron has told that like Arnold has confirmed, right? So Cameron agreed to meet with Arnold because he wanted to make a plan to avoid casting him. And he said that Cameron said he was going to pick a fight with him, right? And that they would get into an argument, and that would convince Hemdale that Schwarzenegger wouldn't be good for it. Instead, Cameron and Arnold like met, and they had a really good time. And said he found him very entertaining. And Cameron started talking. Arnold started talking about like how the Terminator should be played, and Cameron was like into it. So he was like sketching images of him like the Terminator. And he says at the end of him, he was like, dude, like you can't play Reese, but you be a hell of a Terminator. And Arnold like agreed. Though Arnold does say that for a long time, he thought he was like some stupid shit he was about to go do. They said he was like shooting. He was like, yeah, I got to go shoot this stupid ass movie where I'm like the Terminator and all this garbage. And so he talked a lot of shit about it before it came out. Right. And like he said, like also because the studio did treat it like a B movie, which is what we were talking about earlier. Like this wasn't seen as like some kind of elevated thing. It was seen as some kind of like another one of these like Roger Corman-esque movies that were going to be made, probably be some bullshit. Hopefully they'll make a little bit of money and everybody can laugh and be fine, right? But of course, it totally turned and it ended up becoming like a huge, like, you know, thing of what it is now. Yeah, I think I could stop there. Hiram, let's go to you. Like, what are your early memories of Terminator, bro?
First of all, two things. If the Juice was a Terminator, no one's outrunning that Terminator at all. And way more people were getting killed.
Go, OJ! Go, OJ!
So, you know, as that white lady would have definitely gotten killed real quick. But, you know, I digress. We got the movie that we really wanted. Yeah, no. So the Terminator. Oh, real quick. The last time I was here, the Knicks were in the playoffs, and I was like, you know, because I see Jay with his 76ers hat or whatever. I have my fly hand of God OG Anunoby T-shirt. You know what I'm saying? Because the boys did it.
That's fly. That's a fly shirt, bro.
For the rest of my life, I don't care who joins what team. I can die now. So let me see. This is 1984. So I was like 7 when the movie came out. So I don't remember exactly watching it when it came out. I'm sure I did vaguely remember, but I do remember it watching it all the time because my dad had it recorded, right? We talked about this way back where like you had these like you have these VHS libraries that you record off HBO and stuff. And so that was like up there, the top shelf of the movies. The thing I remember most was the eye, right? So the eye was a big deal, like taking the eye out. And at that point, this was like peak movie, you know, movie studio magic and stuff. And the robot. Now when I watch it again, the robot running looks real janky and corny. But at that time, right, just a skeleton robot thing was like, oh snap. And so those were, and then the usual. This was 2029, and so it was like 1984. So was this whole Run DMC era, right? It's 1984. For those who live in 1984, it's 1984, right? 2029 seemed like some whole other world in our imaginations. 2000 seemed like some whole other world in our imagination. So 2029 was like, forget about it. So whatever they displayed on TV or in the movie theater, right? The whole thing, that was like, yes, that is definitely going to be the 2000s. And I can totally see that because there was also that whole, even though my generation didn't have to deal with it too much of like the whole nuclear threat, my parents' generation did, right? And so there was still that, and then and the Soviet Union was still a thing for a while. So there was always still that sort of possibility of a nuclear holocaust, of a nuclear war, right? So we grew up with those fears of like a nuclear war or whatever, and then this is it. This is what it's going to look like, and that's crazy. So it's either going to be Terminator or it's going to be like Mad Max in the Thunderdome, shoulder pads with spikes or whatever. I kind of like this version of the robots that none of us can escape, as opposed to like folks sharpening their own teeth and doing all that stuff. But yeah, but that's what those are the ones that's what I mainly remember from the movie.
It's a really good point. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up 2029. I mean, so just for folks who don't, if you haven't seen it yet or whatever, it's set. I think I have a screen grab here, but we can do that when we get into a minute. But the idea is that like there's 2 time periods in the film. There's 1984, the present, right? I think they even say tonight, right, on the opening scene. So it's like you're supposed to be right in the moment. And then there's, 2029. And I mean, it's so funny because when you look at all of these 80s films, we haven't done Back to the Future 2 yet, but that's 2020. When is it? The future?
It's like
is 2005, right, or something like that. Like it's not that.
It's like 15 or something like that, or 25.
30 years in the future, so it's 2015, I think.
2015, yeah.
Yeah, it's 2016, something like that, right? So, there's a lot of these, and I mean, even when you get to Terminator 2, right, that's supposed to be in the future, and the future is 97, right? And so there was so many films, and I think also the Y2K thing became a big this connected in for like people don't remember like when it was about to turn year 2000, like we literally thought that the apocalypse was going to happen that night.
There's only 5 years left, Buster. There's only 3 years left.
So, yeah, I mean, this was a huge amount of paranoia, and the future was almost always like really bleak. There were not a lot of positive visions in the future. Back to the Future 2 might actually be the closest in a lot of ways, even though it's bleak in its own ways. But like there weren't very many positive. Maybe Star Trek, right, would be an example of kind of a positive sci-fi future. But most of the sci-fi stuff that we got in the 80s was this kind of post-apocalyptic stuff. We talked about Running Man with Hiram before, right, as another example, much shittier film. There's all this, but yeah, I mean, we got 3 years left, guys, until 2029. So, there'll be robots, running over skulls in the post-apocalyptic era within 3 years. So
unless we believe in Sam Altman and invest in, Elon and all of them.
This is what I'm saying. I was watching the movie, right, in the opening scene with the skulls and the crushing, and I was just like, yo, we're kind of here. You know what I'm saying? Like, for the first time, 2029 kind of feels like, yeah, right? Because if you take everything, I mean, the drones, because they're just drones flying over, right? They look different, but they're drones. And there are planes that can hover like that, right? Like the Marine Corps has those planes. The buildings blowing up, the tanks crushing skulls. I mean, we've watched 3 years of Gaza of exactly that, right? On our phones. These robots running around killing people. Now, right now it's 2026, so the robots can only break dance. But give it 3 more years, and those same little breakdancing robots can do that, right? In New York State is supposed to be one of the first ones who are rolling out cyborg teachers. Did you all see that? For like kindergartners. So they're going to have the Terminator in their classroom teaching them their ABCs. Like, that's the Terminator. It could be a girl Terminator, but it's still the Terminator. So 2029, and then there's the whole report, right? There's a report from the Air Force where the Air Force is denying it, and then other folks are saying no, it's true, about the drone, right? Where they were running military simulations, and the drone went rogue and started attacking its operator so that it can continue its mission, right? Because the operator tried to call off the mission. The drone's assessment supposedly was like, no, this has to happen in order for XYZ to be able to be possible. So it started to attack its own operator to kill the humans in order to complete the mission. Now, the Air Force denies that and says, no, that never happened or whatever. But, right, we know these things are all happening. And so when you take them all, and right now they're a little discombobulated and not directly connected in that way. But 2029 is so much closer than anything we could have imagined way back, right? Way back when we thought it was only 5 years left. And that's it's funny, but then that's also the scary part about it too. When you're watching this movie, right? The movie's like, oh my God, it's 1984 shit. This is what we used to love. I mean, yeah, we loved it, right? But like when you sit back and you think about it, you're like, fuck, man, this is real, bro. This is real with the Elon Musks, with the Peter Thiels, with our flock cameras, with our fucking the cars now. After 2027, all automobiles are supposed to have cameras inside watching you to make sure that you're not getting drowsy or whatever. The phones with all the little Israeli bombs inside of them now, right? All the iPhone 17s and beyond are going to have little Israeli bombs in them. Israeli technology, but that's tracking you to blow your head up, right? My little New York Knicks World Championship phone case. I'm gonna throw on the New York Knicks World Champions, ladies and gentlemen. They can't blow this up. Netanyahu can't get this one. Netanyahu can't take this away from me, right? But just thinking about it, it was a little scary. It's a little scary watching the movie.
Just quickly, I mean, I agree with that. I think the thing, like, I think with Dwayne Monroe around a lot of this stuff too, which is just like, the impact that films have on this on tech bros, right? So it's like it's part of the way that it becomes that the technologies start to look like what we see in this film is because sci-fi and stuff like and then Terminator making all this shit seem so cool. It's like, you're a billionaire tech bro. You're like, okay, well, let's make the robots that can do the police work. Let's make, and so I mean, we talked about that a little bit with RoboCop and with some other stuff that we've done, but the reality is that these films do have a strong purchase within the minds of people. A lot of people get into tech to make these kinds of things, right? And so it's I think it's good not to think about it too much as like that James Cameron was some brilliant dude who was able to see the future, as much as James Cameron made things that people thought were so cool and it was promoted to us as so cool too, that causes generations to go into these industries to then make things. And obviously there's all this surveillance, policing, military stuff. It has a real utility, right, for capitalists, right? And maybe in that sense, some of these sci-fi folks were able to see that in advance of like understanding that the corporations and the state were going to want to continue to develop military and surveillance and policing technology in order to, defend their interests, right? You can kind of see where it's going to go, that it's just going to keep getting worse, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I was going to say largely what you said, Jay, and like just to kind of like add, because like, I don't know, Peter Thiel did this like super long full day, like dissertation or whatever about like his kind of theory of the world. Like it was like the Peter Thiel theory of the world. He gave like a talk, right? And the cats that This Machine Kills went over it, and then in a great way that they do it, like really hilariously. And I read some of it too, and you see the kind of like blending of a couple things. The fact that they were raised, a lot of them watching these kinds of movies. They believe in shit like the decline of Western civilization, which we'll talk about a lot tomorrow with the Odyssey. So probably reading a lot of Heidegger and shit like that, Nazi, like straight up Nazi shit, right? And those types of things. And then the way they kind of see themselves is like they think they John Connor, or they think they're Kyle Reese, which actually is interesting. When we get to Reese is some weird ass masculine expression. It is like the weirdest white male masculine expression ever, right? Like it's like, oh, I'm trapped. I can't be me, I'm just a sperm in time. I'm sorry, it's hilarious, but they're kind of trapped in this emotional. And when you read like Thiel's stuff, it's so fucking funny because you realize it's like, dude, you watched The Matrix and Terminator too many fucking times. But the scary thing, like you pointed out, Hiram, is they got the money to try their best to make that shit real, right? And like it's like a chicken or the egg thing in their brain. It's like where do you like you're making the shit, but then you want to protect us from the shit. It's like y'all are demented, and you see like that demented thinking in this kind of weird ass freaking movie that you have here that's hyper violent. So yeah, we could dig into the flick. Before we get into the flick, there's one little thing to say. There's been a lot of like plagiarism things with the movie over the years. I won't get into the ones that were kind of claimed on the internet. There's been one about like a black woman, and there's another one about another sci-fi guy who's like an older writer had claims on. There's a lot of different like stories about it, but there was one that did go to court, right? The guy's name, he was a writer for The Outer Limits, which is what I said it was important to bring him up, right? Yeah, Harlan Ellison, right? And he said there's a thing where Cameron, I think, either stated the episode or he stated Ellison. I can't remember, in an interview, right? And then Ellison later sued and said, well, then he took his idea partly from me, right? it went through a series of stuff, and it ended up Orion ended up settling it for an undisclosed amount, right? And they gave him credit on like later prints of the movie. That's why you see it I think it's the end of the movies, right?
It is. Cameron's exact quote was that he ripped off a few of Ellison's Outer Limits episodes. So he did, right?
Yeah.
So like he just said, I ripped off his episode. So yeah.
But then Cameron likes to backtrack and act like he's pissed. He says he doesn't think he deserves any credit. He says, fuck that. It's bullshit. He's like, I'm over it now. But he feels like Ellison doesn't deserve it, even though he admitted, like Jay said, that he ripped this shit off. I wanted to try to watch the episodes before this, but I was. If anyone has seen the episodes, please let us know in the chat. If you feel like I don't doubt Ellison, honestly. Like, people in Hollywood rip shit off all the fucking time.
But it's also a good lesson in like litigation. Like, don't say shit like that and then make a movie and think that you're not going to have to pay the person that you say that about. Like,
it's hilarious, bro. Come on, man. But yeah. Anyway, we can get to the movie now. So yeah, we start off with our dramatic credits. Dun 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 dun. Like the cross fading letters, right? Dun 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 dun. I mean, that music comes in and you definitely kind of like sit down, right? Ba, 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 ba. I have to say, used to be this video. Shout out to this cat. What's his Every Frame a Painting. He used to do a movie, like movies criticisms. It was pretty good. Some of his stuff, and he did a thing about older film scores and why newer film scores suck because you can't remember them. He said in the same way, and he talked about things like Terminator, like the classic theme song. And Terminator definitely has that classic theme song, like dun 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 dun, like where it feels like the movie, right? Like that's like the Terminator coming. That dun 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 dun. It definitely comes in there, sweeping you in and getting super fucking dramatic. It's a classic. You definitely sit down, perch up, and get ready for, right. But and then I think before that you have the Holocaust area, the right, you see the future, right? Before that, right? Yeah.
So this is so this first scene is the machines kind of going through in 2029, right? And then you get this little
with the ill futuristic font, that ill futuristic font from back in the day.
No, we were in the future, right, when we saw that font right there. The machines rose from the ashes of the nuclear fire. Their war to exterminate mankind had raged for decades, but the final battle would not be fought in the future. It would be fought here in our present tonight.
Mm.
I mean, go ahead. Hiram, you gonna say something?
No, you're just saying you were muted.
Oh, I mean, one of the interesting things about that, and we'll talk about it, and I'd be curious, both of y'all perspectives, is how you situate a film, right? So you start this kind of mythos of the future, but the film literally has no real grounding about politics, the world dynamics. It totally takes out of that, and it basically just gives you death. The destruction is not only like around the corner one day, but it's inevitable, right? Like it's happening, and tonight we're gonna settle the score, right? So you're like, all right, you be watching your 11 o'clock news, and you're talking about the Soviet Union and all this type of shit and all that type of shit. No, fuck geopolitics. There's two motherfuckers who are about to duke it out in LA over 24 hours, right? In a fucking brutal male machine grudge match, right? And this is the world, right? But to completely separate everything from the actual politics of the world is just very interesting in that kind of way. And I think also very indicative of someone like Cameron, who admits he was not very connected to those kind of things. He was a LSD drinker, hanger-outer type of person, thinking about all the wild shit that he could think of. That's like kind of the Cameron way.
Because you're the expert in this here, why is it always LA? Why is everything always always LA, right? Like the end of the world is always going to happen in LA. Like I get it, right? LA ruined hip hop. But like, does LA have to end the world too? Like, I don't understand that part.
A lot of it has to do with film production in that period. Is that they were shooting in Los Angeles, and I think Los Angeles
even Rocky went to LA. Like everything.
It became the nexus. Yeah, it became the nexus of the entertainment industry by the 80s. A lot of it has to do with shooting in New York by the 80s became impossible because of the permits. Koch wouldn't really let people shoot in New York anymore. You had that. And then LA becomes like the city of possibility in that kind of way, American possibility. I think because of the way mass media would be embraced. New York was seen as the news capital, right? Still, it was the news capital in the 80s, right? While LA was seen as the entertainment capital and like the energy capital of like the American kind of vibes, right? So everything would be situated there. Part of it was simply because of production. But I think people like Cameron, they were so entrenched in Los Angeles life, right, that they saw nothing beyond that. So like seeing an irradiated LA is more like in their imagination. They don't really have a relationship to the East Coast in that kind of way. And they also knew they couldn't shoot there if they were really that interested. Some movies would, but it had to be like something we're gonna do big next week. Something like big, it could be done in New York, right? That doesn't have to like have a heavy amount of shit in the streets.
I also wonder too, like New York in the early 80s, like in some ways looks post-apocalyptic already. Like,
right.
That's a good point. That's a good point, Jake.
So LA being more seen as like, you know, the city of the 80s or whatever, and more, you know, LA was full of smog and it was a shithole in the 80s too. So apologies to the LA folks, but I don't know.
Out,
but
so
you do get
those like driving scenes and stuff like that. It probably wouldn't work the same in the city, like on subways. But you could have like the Warriors in the background, just kind of like trying to escape the Bronx, and the Terminator's trying to. That'd have been it.
Escape from New York is probably like, we have to do that movie soon, but that, I think that's probably the closest of New York to this kind of.
And that's even like 81. That's like a really early movie. So by like the mid 80s, I mean, they also just didn't want to shoot there. And I think it was associated. But I think Jay's point is also the fact that post austerity, people already thought it was a wasteland. So like the jump of like the La La Land looking irradiated. Think about the psyche. Like I'm watching Pom Poms. I'm seeing the same year that I'm watching Eddie Murphy roll through Beverly Hills on a drop top. You know what I'm saying? I'm also seeing an irradiated LA. You know what I'm saying? And like, oh my God, so the studio execs are going, that's amazing. Yeah, bro, that's really cool. So their whole imagination is Los Angeles by that point. And it stays like that for quite a while.
One thing to say on the point you made though, right, is like this film is like classic man versus machine, right? Which is a very common narrative trope going back to stuff like John Henry, man versus the locomotive and all of that. And I mean, typically it's really a displacement, right, of class struggle, like, because it doesn't deal at all with like who are the machines actually serving, right? It then takes them to this place as though they have some kind of consciousness themselves and are, and I mean, obviously that is the argument within Terminator, and it is the argument that you hear in some of the, like this, you still hear these stories all the time of like, there was one recently, somebody in the chat, maybe Steven, somebody else would know, of AI going in and doing something autonomously, right, without being programmed to do it, attacking the security of the company or something like that, right? And so there's always this fear, and it's promoted, and it's a certain form of hype usually within the industry to sort of convince people like, oh, we're really creating artificial intelligence now. Because if it's really artificial, or if it's really intelligence, it has to be autonomous. It has to be able to make these kind of decisions all by itself. It can't just be what we program it to do. And the belief that the machines come to within the Terminator world, right, is essentially that human beings are a problem,
right?
And this connects into a broader like kind of Malthusian logic, right? Or the discussion around overpopulation, for instance, being, and the discussions around the Anthropocene a lot of times too, about humanity just being inherently bad for the environment. And all of those discussions are just pushing to the side the question of capitalism, right? And imperialism, and saying like it's not the system in which humanity has developed that is causing all of this destruction and environment and war and so on. It's just people themselves. It's just humankind that's doing that, right? And so this film doesn't do any of the kind of political work to get there, but it just jumps to those assumptions and then just runs with it, basically.
Yeah, I mean, like it's even in like you get like the film how it's like made. So you see this thing, right? You see all like the heads and all that, and then you get the big music. And then like the first thing you see is like that, the kind of cut shot of modern world. You get a machine, right? But it's a modern machine. So to say like, oh yeah, we know machines are sentient, but there was a time that it wasn't, right? And then like the lightning, right, comes in, right? With the brother up in there, seeing the always a black man, he's seeing the fucking guy come in, right? And then you see like Reese get dropped in, right? And oh no, I'm sorry, you see Schwarzenegger you get Arnold get dropped in. And what's interesting about it to me is like attaching to that point, it's like it's hyper focusing on the kind of individuals, right, as representations for the totality of like the world. So that is a real slick way to kind of say we don't have to talk about what actually causes these things. We can kind of make it into a kind of individual grudge match, with the third person being Linda. Well, really a third and fourth person being Linda Hamilton and John Connor, who we don't even see. He's just kind of assumed, right? You can kind of like make a tunnel vision. And in that way, through the subjectivity kind of style, you can escape any kind of talk about anything else, because people are primed to see movies in that kind of way anyway. They're primed to not think about larger questions, right? Unless they become like metaphysical questions, like, is man inherently bad and things like that? And do we destroy things and it's all our fault and so forth and so on? And we need a Messiah who's not born yet and protect the mother and all this type of shit that they kind of like, feed on us. But yeah, we get
the stage for you too, real quick, in that narration, right? Which is like old school stuff, which they don't, either you have the audio narrating like in Conan, or it's this text but they set the scene, they set the whole context for you, and then you just operate from there, right? At some point, the narrator in that whole like once upon a time sort of thing gets taken out of the movies. But once they set it like that, it's like, all right, tonight, the future, got it. That's all you're thinking about.
And then you get Arnold, big ass buff Arnold, right? Naked, fully naked, rolling up, rising up. You get the chest, and like that shot of him in the wide with his naked backside looking over Los Angeles.
yo, but the movie got yeah, that was wild. But the movie had naked front side too.
Yep.
I was like, I don't remember that. That's crazy.
That's classic Corman shit, though. Like, that's part of the Corman thing. Like, is like you get the things that you don't get in like the normal movie. So they're trying to bring some of that
and
stuff
that you don't
in
need.
There too. And right, you don't need also. Yeah, exactly. Right.
You don't even need that. Don't even know why a robot has one either. Right? It's like these are killing machines. Don't know why you went out of your way to make one for your robot, but that's some other.
But I think that's also to what Jay said about the AI thing, is like going back to like Blade Runner is this fascination that could a machine ever become us, and or be and in some ways it'd be better than us, so like stronger, more durable. So to like make people kind of get into that kind of thought space, you need things like, you know, a sweat, a backside, you know, a Johnson.
I feel like this was probably an Arnold like must be in the script. Like I have to be able to show my naked ass. You know, like I just
He's Mr. Olympia.
In my peen?
Mr.
He
Olympia.
might, like, man, go watch it. Go back. Don't actually do this, but go back and watch Pumping Iron, right? And just see what a wild human being that Arnold is. Yeah.
So yeah, he's looking over LA, and then you get the first sequence where he meets the homeboy. Shout out to Bill Paxton. Who will later play probably my favorite role of Bill Paxton in Aliens, also by James Cameron, that he does next when he's one of the soldiers. He's fucking hilarious. But yeah, Arnold meets like the three punks, you know, who are wearing their punk outfits, and like they're so overdressed. I'm like, who are these people? Like, I don't know, man. Like first of all, anyone in the LA who hung out in the 80s, let me know. Were people rocking gear like that, looking over telescopes
with the bicycle, the tire tread mark on his face?
Like, was that shit real? Like, I need to know.
I bet it was.
Holla at your boy.
I bet it was. I bet it's LA now.
Shout out to all the fam in LA. But I want to know for real. But yeah, like that sequence, and it's funny because I'm looking at it right now. You're talking like, you know, 6 minutes into the movie, he's doing like the confrontation with it, and then like right in, like chest, fist to the chest, where he like rips out his shit, you know, and like, give me your clothes, you know, all that type of shit. Arnold, you know, asking for this stuff, and like complete just like violence. Like, you've had nothing else. You've had an irradiated planet. You've had static, right? Lightning. A man rise up and he's naked. The first set of lines you get is him talking to some people and then punching somebody in the gut, right? So it is Michael Myers, you know, in the outer limits, as Carpenter kind of wanted.
I was curious. I was looking at the like, so yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be him ripping his heart out is the way that I see it. Like, it's kind of like just goop in his hand, but like that's the way. And I was really curious if this was the first movie where we saw that. It comes out a few months later than Temple of Doom, which has that as well.
Oh yeah.
And it becomes like, this is a very kind of, I'm very curious if people have any memory of, I don't know if there's any 70s films or early 80s films that have this, maybe like B movies or something like that, or horror movies. Probably so, right? But it becomes a big deal. And, you know, you have like this happens in one of the Friday 13th movies in the 80s, like later on. But in the 90s, what I remember this most from is like Mortal Kombat. Right, like Kano's kind of Terminator-esque, like he's part cyborg, right? And then you have Sub-Zero, who also rips out spines, which the Predator does as well, right? And it's just an interesting, like, I don't really know all of what goes into that morbid fascination, but it became, I feel like 80s and 90s, this idea, and people would talk about it and like pretend to do it. You know, if you were like play fighting with somebody or whatever, of like ripping somebody's heart out or ripping their spine out. And it's just like so grotesque. But this was one of the first movies, along with Temple of Doom, where I remember that imagery. And then, yeah, by the time 90s coming out, it's in video games and, you know, all of that. So.
Yeah. So then after that, you get Reese dropped in, right? You see him dropped in the middle of a
Playboy Reese.
But it's funny, like the differences, right? Of course, I mean, I know narrative they wouldn't make sense, but like, you know, Arnold comes in super poised, and then you just get Reese like dropped in, right? And he's, you know, he's flailing and like, you know, he's all messed up and, you know, naked and trying to figure his life out. And I have to say, like, that this time that I watched the movie, because Reese, I have to say, has always been like, yeah, this is a fucked up character, man. So basically, Reese's whole purpose in life is to be born, fight for a little bit, right? Get dropped into, have his dad tell him, you got to go to the past, save my mama, right?
His son,
his son, go to the past, save my mama, and have intercourse with my mama, and then you're gonna die, and basically your life is like this big ass loop. And because Reese is like essentially like he's like the protagonist in terms of like how he moved the movie forward, I was like, oh man, Reese is definitely a weird expression of a certain kind of like defeated white male consciousness of like, I'm in this eternal like grudge match for my own masculinity. Because what is like Reese's like defining life thing? To go back in time and then be in a grudge match with a thing that won't die. Right? I'm gonna be in a grudge match with a thing that won't die. And I die. Right, but what do I get? I get to meet the mother of the future, and I get to make her have a kid. And I'm like, this is why these tech bros and all these dudes are so fucked in
a lot of young men who would have signed up for that mission. A lot of young men would have signed up for that mission. Because remember, I'll say when we get to that part,
but yeah, so like that's I know I went a little bit further, but like I've seen it so many times. So when I see Reese just like drop in all flailing and he's breathy and trying to get out and get through, I'm just like, oh wow, this is like the emotional connection this must have for certain people. The Reese character is pretty fucking fascinating.
I'm just curious, did Robert Zemeckis give any credit to James Cameron for ripping this whole movie off for Back to the Future? Because Back to the Future is just like a PG-13 version of this movie.
Maybe. I don't know if he would I don't know if he would ever give credit. Yeah, I mean, the one thing is, I hate time travel movies, but at least they simplify this one a little bit. It's still stupid as shit, but they simplify a little bit. Not
afterward, my brain is, I'm always like, well, but what? Like,
yeah,
how does that work?
No. So yeah, I mean, to kind of run through, like Reese is like, running from the cops, right? And it's such a wild fantasy trip. I mean, if Hiram or Jay want to say anything, he's like running from the cops, has to get out through
he robs a homeless man of his pants, which
right?
Probably I wouldn't do. That's probably not the move. You know what I'm saying? No shade to the unfortunate and the houseless, but this is probably not the move. But he does cop the ill. What are those Air Force Ones? I think it was like the first Air Force Ones, right? That the camera every once in a while keeps like just pausing on for a second, like, yo, check out Reese's kicks though. I don't know if it's like
the trench coat too. He gets the trench
coat, but they make sure you see those dunks. I thought, are those Blazers or are those Air Force? I think they're Air Force Ones.
They're right? Air Force Ones.
And I was like, is that product placement? Because the camera once in a while be like, boom, pause for a second, ill kicks. That he just puts to the bottom of his feet and like, yeah, these will fit me. I'm like, come on, bro. Never got them
online says they're black and silver Nike Vandal high top sneakers.
Whoa,
Vandal.
Nike Vandals. Okay. Yeah, they're probably before Air Force Ones. Is 80?
I think so.
Yeah, they're before Air Force. I think Air Force Ones are like
the Nike Air Vandal Supreme is the.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, those are dope.
Yeah.
Those are dope. They should bring those back. They should be like, yo, Terminator fucking anniversary. Bring those back.
Yeah.
Kyle Reese's.
Right. And then the other big thing is Reese grabs the phone book. Yo, shout out to the phone book being a usable and also Back to the Future. In the phone book being a usable function in a movie.
Remember the phone? Yo, remember actually finding people in the phone book? Like, remember that? Like, you could actually find people in the phone book and call.
Yeah.
Yo, the other thing, old school thing that folks don't do no more. Thankfully, that they don't do no more. But the whole like answer the phone and there's some random creep on the other end talking sexual or breathing. Oh, what? Do you all remember that? Remember that was a thing? Like, folks is like probably like, what? Like, that was a thing back in the day. Randos just
Jerky Boys. Remember Jerky Boys?
Well, the Jerky Boys were just whatchamacallit?
Prank calls.
Prankers.
Prank calling. Yeah. We all did that. That was, you had to do that. But the whole just call and maybe somebody breathing and like talking wild reckless on the phone, that doesn't happen. Like, no one's on their phone. Well, not because you can see who's calling you, right? But like that was a blast from the past when dude hopped on the phone doing that. I was like, y'all remember that? I didn't do that because I was a kid, but I know it happened to folks. It would happen to everybody.
Not to go too off the side, there's actually a really good film called Little Murders. It's directed by Alan Arkin, and it was written by Jules Feiffer, who was a kind of a lefty writer. I don't even know who Jules Feiffer is, a cartoonist. And the film's opening thing is actually about, in New York, there was a huge uptick in the late 60s, early 70s of women getting these kinds of calls, right? Of getting these like prank calls in the 60s and the 70s. And like in the movie, one of the lead characters, she's constantly getting them. But a funny scene is she says something to the guy and they end up having a conversation. He ends up like, I never really thought about that actually as I'm doing these calls, right? Like, it's like really, Little Murder, shout out, good movie. Really, 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 really good movie. It was a play.
And real quick in the chat, Renee, I'm not lying. I definitely prank call people. I have prank called people. To this day, I prank call people. To this day. I just never got perverted and did that. That the whole breathing, the weird 80s perverted thing, that was something else. But prank calling, to this day.
I also, one of the things that I do remember with this, right, is that, if you were looking for somebody's number, a girl, or even, for a kid you went to school with, whatever it was, right, or just your parents like trying to find somebody for some reason, the idea that you had to move through the phone book and call multiple people with the same name to try to figure out, is this the right like that was a real thing that we dealt with and struggled with, or even because you could call the operator and ask for numbers for people, but they would be like, well, we have 3 numbers under that name, do you want me to connect you to the first one? Like that kind of stuff. It was funny.
Yo, remember real quick, because now we're going too far off into like 80s lore, but remember you could call the phone and ask them like what time it was. I was telling my son that. He just looked at me like, what are you talking about? I was like, yo, there's a phone number. You call the operator and be like, what time is it? Because you're outside playing and you got to be home at a certain time. There's no clocks anywhere for whatever reason in the 80s. They got rid of all of that. They got rid of everything. And so you had to call the operator and be like, what time is it? And they would tell you the time. Or there's a phone number to tell you the time is whatever. And then you knew you had to haul ass back home.
Based upon an atomic clock too, like that was the thing, is that there was a clock that was based on like atomic, I guess was powered by atomic energy or whatever. And so the idea, this was probably PR for nuclear energy or whatever, but like that was how you knew the exact time, was whatever the atomic clock would say.
So then after he gets it, you cut right to Sarah Connor, played by Linda Hamilton, right? And, she's off to work on her little, scooter. That's a very sign of like 80s women independence. She has her scooter. One of the other things I think this movie is like really big on trying to use is like this idea of like, her and Reese, for 2 different reasons, are these like lost spirits. Right, like they don't have any connection. Like her mother lives far. She doesn't have a direction. I can't even balance my checkbook. How am I the mother of the future? Right, and Reese is this, star-crossed, cursed person who has to live in a time loop. And then they find each other, and I'm like, this is so weird. This is what weird ass LSD James Cameron be thinking about love. This is his. No wonder he's had so many marriages. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is his weird ass concepts of like love and union. But yeah, she works at a burger joint, like diner type spot. You know, all the customers suck. You know, she has to wear a weird ass outfit with something in her hair. Her friend messes with her when she sees the screen. She goes, honey, later, honey, you're dead," or something like that. You know, her best friend when one of the many Sarah Connors are killed a little bit later. But yeah, and then you get that with Arnold then going into the gun shop. Because the other thing about the film is these scenes are super quick. Yeah. They don't really, and I didn't think about that. Like, they don't really expound on much. You maybe a little bit later, you get like a slightly longer, but they're really quick. You don't get no context. You just get the kind of immediate thing. So it's like not a lot to like at your bone. Everything is tense in that kind of way.
Yeah, I mean the first scene that other than Arnold ripping the dude's heart out and quickly killing those dudes and taking their clothes, and yeah, Reese running away. The scene in the gun shop is one that stood out. Just one, like and I have it written down, but like he knows all the guns, right? And this was, I think, I was thinking about this in terms of the 80s as well, because this was a big thing for us as kids, is when we would imagine or fantasize as we were playing on the playground or whatever, as kids, naming off different types of guns and being able to name the really cool ones, right? And like, so I don't know, I'm curious at what point guns became such, like, there was so much emphasis on guns as the commodity and as types, and obviously around their military, capabilities and things like this. But this movie seemed really important in this, and probably like G.I. Joe is another one too, of kind of like implanting that in us as kids.
They sold them to us too, because my brother and I had an arsenal of toy guns. I had Uzis.
Yeah.
We had Uzis, we had M16s, because they would sell them. We had a whole like arsenal of them. There were Rambo. I remember we had Rambo kits that also came with the knife and like the bandana and stuff, and a little Rambo camouflage duffel bag that we would just load up with. Me and my brother would like supply guns to the neighborhood when we're playing these games with the kids, because we had so many of them. But they would sell them to us. You could just buy them in Toys R Us.
No, I think this movie probably.
I don't supply guns to the neighborhood anymore. I just want that to be clear before Renee or somebody jumps in the chat. I do not supply guns to the neighborhood anymore.
For the YouTube censors, toy guns.
I do not supply guns to the neighborhood anymore.
Toy guns. But yeah, I definitely think this movie, Rambo, yeah, like the fact that he's calling out the Uzi and all that type of stuff. I know exactly what you mean. Like when I was a kid, all that, and like the joke that he calls for the plasma rifle. And dude was like, "Hey, man, we ain't got that yet, bro." He's what you talking about, B? He's like, only what you see here, homie, right?
Yeah.
He's like a classic like character actor. He plays it really well. Like he's totally oblivious, and you're like, "Oh, well, you about to get killed." And also the inevitability that pretty much anyone who has a one-on-one with the Terminator for longer than a few minutes, like the chance you probably going to die is like, I don't know, 90%. You know what I'm saying? So you're always kind of waiting for that death, for him to kill somebody. Jay, you gonna say something?
No, I was trying to do my Arnold impression, but I can't do a very good one, so I'm not gonna
do it.
Wrong.
Do it.
Wrong.
Do it. No, I had to do a Scarface. I had to do a Scarface last time. You guys do the Arnold impression.
45 pistol with a laser sight. Phase plasma rifle with a 40-watt range, an Uzi 9mm, and a 12-gauge auto-loader shotgun. It's not good.
Clip that!
Yeah, yeah, that was good. That was good.
I'm much better with the kindergarten cop Arnold Schwarzenegger impression.
It is not a tumor. It's not a tumor. Right. Yeah. So yeah, and then you also see him look through the phone book, and then you get your little like suburbia LA, and he goes right to the door. And like this is the other thing, I mean, I think we talked about this with other movies. The other thing I think is and and it fits with LA, things like the Night Stalker as well. I think that also has purchased, young women being murdered in their homes, how much it was on the news, that type of stuff. So, you get Arnold looking like, a punk rocker walking up to the door of a woman in the suburbs, right? And she just opens up the door and she gets blasted in her home, right?
But remember, he crushed a little Optimus Prime looking truck in the beginning. I was like, yo, is that like he crushed Optimus Prime? I don't know if that was on purpose, if that's some sort of like robot on robot beef kind of.
I'm sure
they were thrown at each other.
You a cartoon, homie. I'm the real deal.
Right.
Like, fuck that shit. Optimus what? T-800, homie, but yeah, like in a way they like do like the slow-mo of the woman dying, and you get like the laser, right? The laser thing on her head. I mean, the violence in this shit, it's like the way that it definitely plays on an existing fear. So you like nuclear holocaust, night stalkers, punks, right? All types of shit. Like you get you get your blood up, right? You're like, oh my God, even when you don't realize it, right? And then she shoots her, and then Sarah goes back to work and she sees that someone with her name died. And she's like, her friend's making fun of her.
You know what grinded my gears about this movie was they're coming from 2029. The robots have taken over everything. The robots are so advanced. They don't have a picture of this woman. They got to go through every single Sarah Connor in Southern California and kill her to get to the right one because they can't identify the Sarah Connor. Like horny ass Kyle Reese is running around with a picture of her in his pocket, but these robots don't know what Sarah Connor looks like, so they have to go doing that shit.
The explanation that they give for it is basically that the nuclear holocaust wiped out all of the like archives of anything, which also then raises the question of like, how did they continue to develop technology after such a catastrophic event? Like,
and it also makes no sense because of how they say that. I mean, then they couldn't write what they later did about Skynet in part 2. With the whole thing of that, it was part of like information network mainframes. So if it was part of that, why wouldn't Skynet just basically download everything as they irradiate the world in their whatever their intelligence? It's just stupid. No, you know what it is, Hiram?
Now?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know what it is, Hiram? You know what it is? They wanted more deaths. Cameron was right. Ooh, how can I get 2 or 3 deaths in before I get him activated towards Sarah? She has people with the same name as her, and then he can go kill him. Ooh, like some night stalker shit, right? Serial. Because what do they say? It's like a serial. Because that's so. Then later, when you get to Paul Winfield and Lance Henriksen, what's their first thought? Right, that he's a serial killer. What do you call it? The phone book killer, right? So they immediately think about that kind of thing. So these people know they want to get the blood up, right? They want to get people scared. They want to get them nervous, and it's a perfect way to just get more deaths, right? So you get Reese, trying to hotwire a car, right? I mean, and then he has his first flashback, right? So you have like the first, future or flash forward. It's like that's where it's all fucked up. Is it a flash forward? Is it a flashback? Woo, right? So we see him in the car, and I remember as a kid though, I can't front. Like when I first saw that, I was like, "Oh, this shit is wild!" Like the heavy blue, like blue tint, and then every time you would see like a beam would be like with white with like light blue like highlights, and then the red would like pop off. Reese is in there shooting, right, going off on stuff, right, and like, is that the part with the truck? Yeah, where they're on the truck, right, and like he's like trying to get away from it, right, and then like it blows him up and shit. He almost dies.
You know what would be ill? You know what would be ill because it's all blue. Is if somebody went back and did that, but they dropped the reel-to-reel back to life. soundtrack on top of it, like Belly. So the text goes like "Back to Life," like that, like the opening to Belly.
Yeah. Let's edit that. Let's do an edit. Let's do an edit. Let's do an edit.
Are you ready?
But
Let's
Jay, you had some comments about the future or the flash forward, the flashback. I don't even know how to call that shit. Actually, it's too much for my brain. You about it. Look at the sand, how it all looked.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's. I don't know. I mean, it's obviously like very kind of like playing in the sandbox. Like, you know, it's the future in this is. I don't blame it too much. Like it's a low budget film for the early 1980s, right? And so, yeah, if you compare it to like other stuff that comes out in the same, you know, like Return of the Jedi or, you know, Empire Strikes Back coming out a few years earlier, right? Those films just look better, right? But they also have bigger budgets, but significantly, you know, and way more, you know. So you know, I do think there's a certain. I mean, I think the robots, to Hiram's point, those were pretty advanced looking, you know, even, but it is kind of like you can sort of tell looking at it that it's all miniatures, basically, that they've created this little, you know, scene for these toys to play in kind of for the future.
Yeah, and you can see heavily within the frames. It's a lot of medium to medium close. You don't have a ton of wides. Where you have wides, they're very clearly like matte backgrounds because they're miniatures. And then I'd be very curious at like the lenses that they use. They probably have these a lot of micro lenses. I mean, the stuff is like really creative and like highly skilled. You know, I agree. Like I've the interesting thing, and I will say about these movies, and I mean, I find Terminator probably had a very negative effect on me growing up. But what I will say is it amazes more effective, these movies, to me, because like there's a way that the organic kind of like smallness, right? Your imagination kind of jumps off. If I'm only seeing like the wheel of some kind of death machine, right? My imagination is like jumping out thinking like, what the fuck is this? What does it look like? Oh my God. And all my like really weird fears are starting to come out, right? Of those things, right? And like, you know, the canisters of the bombs and everything is like, because this movie is like very relentless in that kind of way. It wants you to just be kind of like scared at every, like there is no breath moment for like almost 2 hours. Everything is like totalizing fear.
Right.
It's a lot. I mean, that's one of the things that's funny as we'll go through it is like there's only a few scenes with stuff to actually analyze and talk about, because about 60-70% of the entire movie is like chase and fight scenes, basically. You know, like it's a very action heavy film. Even even compared to like Marvel movies, a lot of Marvel movies are quite slow because there's like they'll have that like first 5-minute, you know, scene that's usually intense, and then they go into like story mode for a while before you get back to the end of the movie where there's another big fight sequence or whatever. In this, it's like there's most of it is action, you know, basically chase driven, and it is a lot, like you said, Mtume, the connection to like Halloween and Michael Myers, and like it is really in that genre of film with just a little bit of the like sci-fi, you know, veneer to give it a little bit of a different character. But like the actual action within the movie is basically that. It is basically like a serial killer coming after and targeting one specific woman in a certain way, you know.
Yeah. I hate those Marvel exposition fucking scenes. They fucking kill me. I just can't take them. Like they're so bad. So you get to like Sarah's life. She's, you know, hanging out with her roommate and they about to go on a date. Shout out to the prank calls though, Hiram, the boyfriend.
It was a thing back in the day. I'm telling you, it was a thing back in the day. Hop on that phone, start playing around. Used to get yelled at by my mom, yelled at by my grandmother, right? Yeah, hopping on that phone, playing around, just punching numbers, doing all kinds of shit. Yeah.
Well, and that's the danger too, is that one of your family members picks up the phone because it was all connected as you're doing some shit like that.
yeah. And like, it's just funny, like the kind of life that they need to depict of like Sarah having, this kind of what they think youth is and what youth of the 80s is. It's very kind of like, I just go out on dates, I do my hair, it's pretty much lost, I have a job, like no one has any interests outside of this. And that the fighter of the future, the mother of the like future resistance is just a woman who can't balance her checkbook. Big right? Jeffs. Big Jeffs. I want to know if that was a real spot in LA. Let us know. No, it wasn't, or they made it up. Oh, it's Bob's Big Boy.
It's their version of Bob's Big Boy.
It's McDowell's. It's McDowell's.
Yes.
But I know Bob's Big Boy. Yeah, I know Bob's Big Boy.
That's McDowell's. Big Jeff is just McDowell's.
Was Bob's Big Boy up in Oregon, Jared?
Yeah. I mean, I went to Bob's Big Boy. I don't actually remember where I did, but I mean, it was a big thing. And it's kind of in like the Denny's, genre of restaurant, basically. Mm-hmm. But yeah. But with burgers being more central than it is at place like Denny's, which is more breakfast oriented.
Yeah. So then you after the phone call, you get the cops, right? And you always got to have cops in movies like this. So you get, shout out to Paul Winfield, who's the black cop. Paul Winfield, if people don't know, Paul Winfield played Martin Luther King on a TV movie. He's in the best Star Trek movie, Star Trek 2 Wrath of Khan. He has the thing go in his ear, and he's like, that type of shit. And he's in.
That fucked me up for years.
Me too. I love that shit going in, but when he has to shoot himself, right? But shout out to the movie that many people have not seen that Paul Winfield in, is his best performance, and that is White Dog, which we have to do here on the Imperial 80s. White Dog is have you seen White Dog, Hiram?
What's White Dog about?
It's about the white dog that attacks black people.
Oh.
Yes. Hey. And Paul Winfield is the trainer. He has to try to train the racism out of the dog.
They're like movies that we all have to watch as like grown up black training back in the 80s. And that was all of us who grew up black, whether you was African American, Puerto Rican, whatever. Everyone had to get the same training. It's like, look, I was just having this conversation real quick. I was walking with somebody, and there was a dog. There was a German Shepherd or something, and I moved to the other side, and like, what's going on? I said, those dogs are racist. And she was like, how do you know? Dogs can't be racist. I'm like, no, dogs can be racist. There's racist dogs. That's one of, but it comes from, the training, and White Dog is one of them. And there's just certain lessons that we grew up knowing. Some dogs are racist, and we just gotta stay away from them.
Yeah. So Paul Winfield plays one of the cops. We'll have to get to White Dog.
Wait. I gotta watch White Dog again. But does that make him like the Yakub of white dogs? If he's the one training this white dog, is he the Yakub of canines? Am I bringing too much of my 5% attention into this?
I don't think so.
Is now the time for the lessons to enter the chat, or do I
don't think so? Let's wait till we get to the movie. Then we can.
We'll bring Hiram Law Mathematics on for White Dog.
Yeah. Study your 120 into that time.
It's always present. It's
always present. And then you also have Lance Henriksen, who is a classic kind of sci-fi dude in lots of these movies. He's definitely in the Aliens films. He plays Bishop, right, in Aliens, later with him. And they're like the two cops. Henriksen was friends with Cameron. They worked together I think they tried to get Henderson to play. Maybe I forgot who tried to get him to play. Maybe the Terminator or something like that, and it didn't work. Obviously, he's too short and doesn't look like a imposing person. So now they're like tracking Sarah, right? And then they go. You cut. I mean, like these scenes are so short because then you cut back to the next scene, and Sarah's about to go on her date, but the dude, cancels on her, and her life sucks. Sarah Connor's life is terrible. She's going to stay home with the friends and they're just not going to have any fun. And it'll just be another like annoying night in her really boring 80s life. Little does she know that this will be the night that changes her complete existence. Right. And then she starts, and like I said, like they poke in, like she kind of like looks, when she's on her scooter to like leave to go to the movie, she like looks side to side, to make sure there's no like night stalkers, and all that type of shit. And then, and like they keep kind of cutting back and forth between the cops, the friends at home, doing her thing. Sarah's out, right? It's like a big kind of like cross cutting between different sequences, like very, very fast, kind of moving, right? The Terminator's kind of closing in on her, right? I think because someone else gets killed, right?
The boyfriend.
Yeah, there's two. Oh, yeah.
Well, there was 2 Sarah Connors who get killed first.
Yeah.
Right. You get that, and then Sarah's at the at the pizza shop. She hears it, and then her friend is back with her boyfriend in the crib, and the Terminator.
Which also grinded my gears because there's that very 80s thing, right? Like where you have the person who's obsessed with music and they never take their headphones off. They're like, there's always that character, that person, usually this person like on roller skates or something. They're like super extra spunky and they can never take the Walkman off. They're like in school, they're everywhere with the Walkman. But the chick is in the, first of all, Shorty is doing the do with her Walkman on, which was wild annoying too.
That's hilarious.
So she's just there listening to like White Snake or whatever the hell folks was listening to it in 84, right? Like I know for us it was like Lottie Dottie. She ain't listening to that. So whatever, right, she listening to, banging in the middle of the do, and she's focused on the music. That's a whole other thing. Then she gets up with them damn headphones still on, makes a whole ass sandwich, tall glass of milk, which I also hated. Who the fuck is drinking milk with their food like that? You know what I'm saying? Like this man just finished putting in work. He don't want milk. I'm telling you, as a man, don't bring me no goddamn milk. I'm gonna throw up on myself, right? But then it's like, if you remember those Walkmans, those earphones were trash. It was like a little piece of foam on the end of a little tiny, like you hear everything. They're not noise canceling speakers. And so when there's a whole brawl and a cyborg is dog walking your man in the other room, you can't hear that through them little tiny Sony foam ass bullshit headphones that only had treble. There was no bass on it. It was just pure treble and background noise. You know what I'm saying? I was like, come on, man. That's the part where I was like, come on, man. But I guess you got to think of it in like 80s mind. But 2026 mind, I'm like, this is bananas. This is crazy. And take off them damn headphones, bro. Bro could have been like, yo, take the fucking headphones off, yo. Put that Eye of the Tiger soundtrack down for 1 minute.
He couldn't. No, he couldn't because he wasn't going to get none. She'd have been like, peace.
Right. That's that Rocky.
Because he's a cornball.
I got that Rocky soundtrack banging in here.
And that's the whole thing about this movie. This is like the self-expression of all these dudes who are corny as hell, who are like, I don't understand why I can't connect with my woman. It's because you are a complete numbskull. There's a reason why she wants to wear headphones when she's with you. she don't like you that much.
faking like she can't hear nothing with them little tiny ass. They didn't cover nothing. Again, for those of you who remember, those of you who are old enough, them headphones were like tiny. They barely covered anything, y'all.
Yeah. Yeah. And
also, shout out to the iguana. Also, the big 80s pet. People had iguanas in their house in the 80s and the 90s.
I just want to say something though. If you notice the theme in our commentary about this movie, like about a half hour into it, this movie is so superficial, right? Like this is the thing. Like I was like watching this shit. Like, what can you actually like link into? And really, it's all having a very superficial read of the 80s, very like surface read, you know, kind of punching all of the kind of like fears of nuclear holocaust and night stalkers and this type of shit, right? Getting your blood up for all that type of shit. And then every 10 minutes, making sure you have a death or start a big ass shootout, which will eventually come in like the next scene where she's at the club, at the tech noir club. Reese is following her. She obviously doesn't know who Reese is because she's totally out of context, right? You know, and she's like calling the cops. Now she's on the phone with Paul Winfield. You know, shout out to the black man being the one who's going to protect the white lady. You know, they definitely, you know, trusted brother. You know, Paul Winfield. You know, he gets the racism out of white dogs and he helps out white ladies.
Dr. King,
we're going to save the fiction, and he's Dr. King. Right, you know, and he kills himself in Wrath of Khan because he can't kill Kirk. Kirk must defeat Khan. Paul Winfield, man, these roles they gave brother are just so mean, right? So yeah, you get like the famous, you know, disco club scene where, you know, Arnold is basically about to go hunt down, and you get all the cross cuts. It's very Western, right? Reese looking up, all these fucking slow motion shots, you know, of him looking, and then he find, you know, Arnold finds Sarah, brings out the thing, and then Reese just unloads the gauge right at him, you know, and then we're off. I don't know if any comments on our big action sequence here.
I mean, just a couple of minor things. I did love the, you know, when Winfield's character he has the idea of like, oh, we'll use the press, right? This is a press case because there's the, you know, it's like, make the press work for us for a change. Maybe she'll come to us, right? Because they keep calling her. I mean, this is also the very funny, very real thing about the 80s of if you wanted to get somebody or get critical information to somebody, it was actually very difficult to do so. It relied upon you either showing up to their house or them picking up the phone when you called them and being home to do so. But he says right before he goes to talk to the media, how do I look? He says, the other dude says, like shit, boss. And he says, yo, mama.
Yo, mama.
I want to believe that Paul Winfield improv that shit.
I would hope so. That's better than imagining James Cameron like writing it down.
It was too smooth.
It's too smooth. Your mama. Probably like, Paul, just say something like edgy, like fuck you. He's like, your mama. And they were like, yeah, we like that. Your mama.
Hell yeah. Hell
yeah, we like that.
The name of the club that she's at is Tech Noir also, you know. And yeah, Terminator arrives to kill her. Reese is there. Also, one of the funny things that bothered me on rewatching is you never actually see how Reese comes upon a shotgun to saw off. It's just like somehow shotguns just laying around in the streets in 1984 in LA.
He doesn't get it from the cops car, or no? I could be wrong.
There is that. It is implied. But did they show it?
Yeah,
they showed that. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay. I thought it wasn't actually.
Car. And then the rope, and he ties it around his.
Yeah.
He saws off the butt of it.
It's not hard to miss those things because the movie is so choppy. Like if you were like to close your eye for a second, you would miss
I missed
things. It. Yeah,
it's
very choppy in that kind of way. Just like kind of moving and
he's like slouching, and he opens the door and grabs the gun, and then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you get this. Go ahead.
And you get the come with me if you want to live, right? That line.
Which then in 2, the Terminator says it. Whoa.
It gets,
you know,
that line, that was like a 1984 meme, right? The version of it, you know, that and obviously the one we'll get to in a minute, that the Terminator.
I mean, the other thing, and I guess, and I'll say it now since it's on my mind, is that dudes think this is like a woman's fantasy that some dude from the future will come and save them. This is a fantasy that some dude bros think that women have, that a guy from the future was to come and duke out with Arnold Schwarzenegger over them to save their future.
Wait, Ntume. Maybe it was in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? maybe in the 80s, maybe, you know what I'm saying? They were like, yo, I want some dude from the future to come save me from these breakdancing numbnuts motherfuckers I gotta deal with now.
This is a good point too. I mean, we've talked about it before of milk and the dairy lobby is still a big thing. It's still why kids have to eat or drink cartons of milk in school. In America, even though everybody knows now that cow's milk is freaking terrible for you. But yeah, anyway, it was I was wondering if either that was product placement or just they got a little bit of money from the milk lobby people or something to put a glass of milk there. Anyway,
the other thing I forgot, and you get it early in the first part, is you get the Terminator vision also, which everyone got obsessed with, right? You see the data. It has like a compass, a bunch of,
but none of it can tell him who the real Sarah Connor is.
Exactly. No, it doesn't make any sense, right? They don't have. Yeah, and it's like it shows you like how much they actually didn't have any real ideas about technology. They just wanted to basically say he's a robot. Let's just add some cool graphics.
Real quick. Just you know what I'm saying? Social commentary again. That's all I got to contribute to these things. Ain't no Mexicans in Terminator. You like in LA, and there's no Mexicans anywhere.
Except when you get to the end outside of LA.
Outside of LA in the desert. Right. Outside in the desert.
Yes.
But inside LA, this woman is running all over LA. Name one Mexican in this whole sequence.
I'm almost glad that Cameron didn't do it, because imagine how racist that shit would have been if Terminator had to. Imagine how racist that shit would have been if it wasn't Bill Paxton and them. It was a group of Mexican homeboys hanging out. That shit would have been so racist.
Yeah, that would have been. Yeah.
That shit would have been so racist. I guess they weren't gang obsessed yet. If this movie was made in like '89, they wouldn't have been punks. They would have been gang members.
Well, when did Colors come out? When did Colors was
I think 86. I think 86.
Okay. 85 or 86. Yeah, it's
close to the time.
Yeah.
And wasn't the Olympics in LA around this time?
84, right? It's that year.
And that's the one that the Soviet Union didn't come to, right?
Colors is 88, so we're still a few years away from Colors. Yeah. But yeah, 84 was the Los Angeles Olympics.
Yeah, the Olympics ain't even in the movie. It's kind of whack.
Yes. So the movie just kind of jumps for that whole fight scene out of Tech Noir goes into a car. They're rocking. It's like 15 minutes, right? It's like 15 minutes to then when Reese, finally explains. They kind of break away from the Terminator. And then for a little bit, and Reese explains to Sarah, who he is, and he gives all of his, his explanations. I don't know if anybody has the lines. Like, it's so funny because I do think Michael Biehn, I think he plays it well. Because he's so like straight up, like, this is what I am, Cyberdyne Systems. I'm like, he plays it actually really well. I'm like, go ahead. He's like there's no self-awareness. Like, I'm a soldier. This is what I do. I move forward. I gotta save you. I mean, he plays it, I think, how it needs to be played.
No, I mean, I think him and Linda Hamilton's performances really carry the film, honestly. Like, it could be a lot worse than it is if they didn't, play it fairly well. But yeah, I just wrote down, she's like, he's a robot, not a robot, cyborg, cybernetic organism, right? Like the explanations, right, are really funny. And I remember that shit as a kid, a lot of people talking about cyborgs and this discussion about humans and machines melding together and that being different than robots and cyborgs being cool and all this kind of stuff. A lot of it just comes from this particular movie as well as some others. I mean, there is the movie Cyborg that comes later, but this movie, go ahead.
Small Wonder.
Yeah.
The TV show Small Wonder.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting too because when you go back to Star Wars world, right? they refer to the robots as cyborgs, which is weird, right? Because C-3PO's whole thing is like human being cyborg relations, right? Is what he talks about. But this is where you get Terminator is really where you get what we think of as cyborgs really ever since, right? Which is this combination of technology and human, which is funny because in a lot of ways in Terminator, he is just totally a robot, and the human part is like they talk about how they grow. He actually explains that in the scene, I believe as well, of they grow human flesh and all this other stuff for the purposes of the robots to cover themselves up and make them look human.
Blood.
Yeah,
skin and blood.
So yeah, because she talks about it bleeds and all of this kind of stuff, and so there's all that explanation of that.
You said they grow that? I forgot. I was wondering where do they get all the skin and the blood for these robots for?
Yeah, he says they're grown in some kind of way. Yeah,
like in a lab or something, basically.
They like just big enough.
Farm, like a human farm. Maybe these robots have a human farm.
They kind of show it in that really bad Christian Bale one that they do later. I think he infiltrates because you get to watch Arnold. It's so bad. It's like one of the worst movies. Common is in it. That's how bad it is.
This franchise, that's funny. This franchise doesn't exist for me after 2. I gotta be honest. Like, it's 1 and 2, and then everything else I just pretend does not exist and have not seen most of the other stuff. And I was actually looking at it in doing a little bit of research around doing this episode of how much there is now, because I didn't even realize it is kind of like Predator now, which I view pretty much the same way. There's 1 and 2, and then I do like Prey, which was done a few years ago, but most of the Predator stuff is just like really, it's almost like slop. I mean, people talk about AI slop, and these movies I think are great examples where you have this intellectual property that's based off of these films that were huge in the 80s, and then they just like churn them out, just keep making it, but it's nothing that really, like, in my view, comes close to the originals, even though I'm not sitting here trying to say the originals are like the greatest thing ever, but they were huge in the 80s. It's totally different, I think, than the way it is now.
They even retcon it, and they make Sarah Connor the like John, I think, doesn't get born or some shit, and like Sarah's the liberator.
Can I ask a question real quick? If we pause it at this moment here where he's explaining, would the movie have been totally different if it was OJ? Like going back to OJ at this point, I'm
just trying to imagine that shit. Imagine like, OJ in Tech Noir.
I imagine that James Cameron was probably afraid to do that because it would just, like, the racial dynamics in 1984 too of doing that, like, would just be it would make the movie very different. And obviously it would make 1992 through like 96 very different too, in the kind of like the way that all of that shit played out. I mean, I think OJ's probably guilty if he does this movie, right? He probably goes to prison for killing Nicole Brown Simpson.
Is done. The juice is done if he does.
I mean, was he on Monday Night Football yet?
I think so.
Well, did he lose? No, I don't think so. Because like, you think he gets that job? You think he gets the Monday Night Football job if he's doing sci-fi slasher movies?
Well, I don't think so. When did Naked Gun come out?
Like late, like 87. But like that's like a silly ass movie.
So he started it was 83 to 85 is the period he does Monday Night Football. So it would be right in the middle of it.
But he was still on Monday Night Football when he did it. He did longer than that, because I feel like he was still on Monday Night Football when that thing happened. When the murder happened. It says 86. Like, he still worked for the network. Yeah, got it.
But I don't think he was actually like a regular on Monday Night Football anymore at that point. Like, he might have done like maybe like sideline stuff every once in a while.
Yeah, he was a sideline. I think he was still a sideline reporter, is what I remember very specifically. Yeah,
it would have been an interesting movie. Now I just keep thinking of the juice of the Terminator in all these scenes. Like the Juice would have definitely got busy with the roommate. That would have been a scene. Like they would have been able to get away further because the Juice would have taken time to like.
I'm trying to see OJ do like his boxing shit. Can you think about
First of all, the Juice is mad tall. The Juice was tall as hell, right? So the size difference is crazy. Yeah. The Juice would have definitely got busy with that white woman before killing or whatever. She's like, what is this? A human? Like, no, it's a cyber human, whatever. And then she's gonna be like, but he's black. That's when your racism piece comes in, right? And just like, it would have been a different movie, but it could have killed too. It could have been. The Juice would have been the guy. Yo, it could have changed the Juice's whole trajectory, man, for real.
Governor Simpson.
Yeah. Maybe he gets more famous. You know, he just leaves Nicole Brown for you know, like it's just
right. He would have blown up at Hollywood, but like, yo, I'm doing.
Now we're doing our version of the Terminator, right? Save Juice, go back.
Y'all are disrespectful. Let's get back. Let's lock in. Let's lock in. Y'all getting disrespectful. Let's lock in.
Yeah. So you got all the fights. He's like, you know, talking about the future, the alloy, and all the type of stuff. I mean, I think one of the interesting kind of like is also that period's obsession with the future and not the present, right? Like in that time, we were told to be so obsessed with a future, but a future that's like determinate. Because like even in this film, if you think about the premise of it, it's not to change it. It's to actually sustain the future, right? It's the Terminator who wants to change the future. They actually want to keep it the same because they need to keep the resistance person. But what's the thing that we have to accept in Terminator 1? That the Earth gonna blow up.
Right.
We all dying.
Right.
Y'all dead. It's happening. What we
you can't change that future. That's not even on the table.
That's not even on the table. And even when they do it in 2, which I think is because of the fall of the Soviet Union, they even do, well, maybe it's possible now that, you know, we could possibly, you know, and then we get the thumbs up, right? It's a bit more bright, right? They even say the possibility exists. But in this one, nah, bro, it's over, right? So this obsession with a dead future.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of it. I did find this part a little bit interesting, right? Because the idea that they propose is that like the tech race is basically for the Cold War, right? And so all of the robots and stuff like that come out of, you know, Department of Defense and all of that kind of stuff, which of course, but that at a certain point they decide, he makes some comment about it not just being, let's see if I have it here. It might be later on. Yeah, here it is. It says, he said there's there's a nuclear war a few years from now. It's all gone. The machines, defense network computers hooked into everything, trusted to run it all. They got smart, a new form of intelligence. Then it saw all humans as a threat, not just the ones on the other side, right? So like this idea in 84, of course, that there's another side that you're doing all of this stuff for.
Yeah.
But then saying like, oh, well, the machines are going to get so smart that they start to realize that we're the problem, like that all of us are the problem, you know? So again, it fits within a very kind of liberal view of that just feels like all of humanity is tainted and guilty and ultimately leading to all the kind of bad things, which also means that you really can't do anything about it, right? It kind of leads into this kind of nihilism, I think, around a lot of this stuff of like, it's just sort of like you said to me early on, it's sort of inevitable, right? That the problems with human nature will lead to technology in this way, and they'll at a certain point recognize that we're bad and take us out, basically. And but then it's like, well, then we have to fight to save humanity for some reason, even though it's so bad that it needs to all be taken out. Yeah.
And maybe we could talk more of this about the end at the end when we kind of wrap up. But like, it's interesting to think about that thinking from our generation. But I also do think that there's ways that thinking, it kind of dissipates into other things, even on the left, right? Where they think of, maybe a certain people are good, but other people are inherently bad. Like their humanity is inherent, and how people look at development, right? And they think about the kind of creation and the development of human beings and social conditions and so forth and so on, right? And I mean, it's funny. I haven't read the book, but there's a guy who wrote a really good big book on Heidegger, and he's like a communist recently, and he talked about how Heideggerian thought it permeates through all of the academy, and even people on the left have basically developed in many ways a kind of decline of civilization thought process to even how they think about everyone else, right? And even how they view the left also. And he says it's fundamentally a right-wing thing, and he says people need to kind of get past that and understand that.
Yeah, there's also like the whole anti-civ, kind of thing that happens, right? Where some people are just like decide to be opposed to that whole idea of civilization. I mean, as we'll talk about tomorrow, to me with the Odyssey, like there's a lot of really fucked up issues, especially within Western civilization and I do think that civilizational like discourse and ideas can be kind of toxic in a lot of ways, but it becomes this sort of fetishization then of the primitive, right? And like this kind of idea of, we all need to get back to some form of living that none of us have ever experienced or actually know how to do either. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of ways that the logic of the kind of nihilism, this sort of techno nihilism, this idea of humanity as inherently just flawed in ways that are going to lead to death and destruction, and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, I disagree with it. I think that it's
Terminator
not good
meets
political.
the Unabomber.
Yeah.
What did Ted Kaczynski think of the Terminator?
He probably thought it was right. He probably was like, this is, start. It's like, oh, let me take some notes.
Well, no, let's do it. There were on the memes, Thanos was right. That's literally like a meme and like a conversation within like sci-fi bros and sci-fi folks, right? And that kind of thought, like, yeah.
That's also conspiracy theorists too, right? That the elites, the elites want to kill half the population. Was it Prince William? I think was it Prince William or Prince Andrew? Like they were into that, right? And they were like, the majority of the population is just here to just eat and not contribute nothing. That most of the population should be killed. That's why they invent diseases and all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the Malthus, like the Malthusian logic or whatever. This idea, that Thanos
whenever we start talking about the
and
Illuminati, bring me on that show.
Is there a good 80s movie for the Illuminati? There's some 90s ones for sure. I don't know.
I don't know. I think it's a 90s thing in the movies at least. So yeah, you get that conversation, and then right after that conversation, another gun battle. You know what I'm saying? Like, they dumped the car, or no, they're like hiding in a parking lot, and then Terminator finds him. He's in the cop car, and they're going off and like the gat bow, which eventually leads into like another parking lot, right? Or freeway, or no, they're like an underpass of a freeway, right? The cops kind of close him in. The Terminator gets like, smashed into a car or into a wall. And, she's like, Reese, they'll kill you, which is true. If Reese would have rolled out there with the big gat, he would have been.
By that point, though, for real, the cops would have just already hopped out the car. But
exactly.
Like
it's true.
At that point, the cops would have been already just
LAPD
on anybody, but they just letting off on everybody at that point. Because you would have had some dead officers at that point. No, he gets arrested, so not yet. You would have had some dead officers though.
Yeah,
they're airing them
There's
out.
a lot of cops. Many cops die.
What? Flip overs? I mean, we'll get to that scene. That scene is brutal as shit. Like that scene is brutal as hell. So they take Reese in, and now they're at the cop spot, right? With I have to say, Cameron has a thing with always having a Jewish guy or like a Jewish kind of coded guy play a kind of like weird like asshole. So you have like the doctor, you have Burke played by Paul Reiser in Aliens. It's a thing that he likes to do, which I wonder if anybody's ever like kind of called that shit out. It's very tropish in that kind of way. So yeah, because Sarah's there.
Him and Mel Gibson.
Yep, him and Mel Gibson. It's like it's a little like you doing that little thing there. I see that.
At least it's not Mort Goldman. It's not
right. What is it? His name is Dr. Silverman or right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
and you know he's the psychiatrist, but he's a total jackass, right? He's a loon, right? You know, complete asshole. They bring him back in 2. Right, and he basically says in this one that's gonna make a career. I can make a career out of this, right? Like,
right.
It's a total trope, right?
Yeah, I can make a killing out of this.
Exactly. It's totally like, oh, bro, it's a little funky there, but you know, do you, James? Okay, you know. So yeah, they're in like
Mort.
Right, exactly. So yeah, so like they're talking about it. They're basically saying that like, yeah, they're in like a grudge match, right? And then they do a lot of cross-cutting with this stuff. They cross-cut to a sequence where the Terminator is like repairing himself. And I remember this shit was actually really cool to me when I was a kid, like seeing like the gears, right? Is this where you see the eye, Hiram?
The eye. Yep. He takes the eye out. He opens up his wrist. And you see the skeleton, the mechanical skeleton and stuff.
Yeah. And then you have the and then they cross cut that with the interrogation scene with Silverman and Reese.
Also, real quick though, when he's doing the whole eye thing and all that, the makeup or the mask is terrible because it looked nothing like Arnold at all. It was just some terrible. If we can get a still shot of that, I was like, yo, what happened to his face? His whole face.
I mean, that's very early. I mean, it was like very early stuff with that kind of stuff. I mean, they didn't really get good with that stuff until like around when they could do the combo with like total. Like, think about this to when he had to do the thing with Total Recall, which still was a little funky at times too. Right, from this to like Total Recall to like, I don't know, maybe like something in the mid to late 90s. That could like you could see the qualitative like shifts, but this one, the practical effects is definitely really, really, really tough. But in a way, I think because like the movie it's a thing about movies that's interesting. You forgive it. Yeah, there's nothing like Arnold. It's nothing like it. It's so fun. It's so funny. Yeah, but you forgive it. It's like because you're kind of wrapped up in it. In a way, it probably also distances an audience for a second. It doesn't make it too real. He kind of looks like Michael Myers there a little bit.
Yo, he looks like Michael Myers, right? He does look like Michael.
He looks like Michael Myers a bit. Yeah. Right. He gets like the shades on, and then you get them like watching the recording of and he says he's gonna rip her heart of Reese. He's gonna rip her heart out. Da-da-da-da. And Silverman is like, yeah, this is the best thing. I'm gonna get rich. I can make a whole career out of this guy. Like it's like Cameron's a weirdo, man. I'm sorry, dude. He's a weirdo.
Well, and like this is Cameron at his best. I mean, I don't want to get, but I can't stand James Cameron movies after.
Oh yeah,
like after T2, like Cameron fucking Avatar, like please.
Oh, Avatar's so bad, but like the way he's. I mean, you think about Titanic too. I mean, I'm not a Zizek person at all, but Zizek's thing about the end of Titanic is spot on. Right, the whole thing of like the poor dude is holding her up on the raft, right? When you know what I'm saying, holding Kate Winslet up on the raft, and he freezes to death, and then she goes, "You can now go." Right? I was like, Zizek's thing on that thing is spot on, right? He really nails that shit because it's true. Like Cameron has these like class and race and primitive.
I forgot he did Titanic. That's the worst movie ever made. I mean, that movie.
Oh God, Titanic is fucking. Oh, bro, fuck that movie. We're Imperial 80s. I'm sorry, it's not happening. That movie is not going to be watched. It's 4 fucking hours.
I'm gonna make you watch it, M2, just so that we can.
No, we can't talk about that movie, and we'll do it. We'll do a 30-minute episode. That's about it. I do like Aliens. It's fun. Aliens is fun. I do.
No, I like Aliens too. That's what I'm saying. Like his 80s to like 92. Like you just can do a clean cutoff after Terminator 2 and just be like everything else.
I mean, someone said True Lies in the chat. I'm sorry, True Lies is peak in Cameron imperialism. That movie is a fucking. You know about racist? Woo! That movie's racist. That is a racist ass movie. I mean, come on. I can't even. We'll have to do that one. But that's like one of the most racist movies you'll ever see. That's Birth of a Late Nation level. It's bad. It's bad. Yeah, so now we're in the spot. They're telling Sarah that it's just bulletproof vests and shit. Don't be too worried. And then you get the Terminator, come to the the police station, and then we get our famous line. Who wants to take a shot at the famous line? Hiram, you want to do it?
No, it's your turn. You haven't done an accent yet. It's your turn.
I'll be back.
It's better than mine. At least in this episode.
I'll be back, right? And he goes in, which becomes a very famous fucking line, right? And he crashes a damn car into the police station, right? And then goes into that scene, that fucking the carnage of the police station scene. It's just like, damn. I'm like, damn. They just was like, it's like my thing with movies like this is like, what do they be thinking? Okay, so then we're gonna come in and shoot the guy, and then he'll shoot this guy, and then we'll get the bullets come up his chest, and it's like, dude, this is nuts. I'm sorry, this much carnage is in your brain. This is what you're doing right now. It's pretty intense.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things I want to say on that. Sorry, I got to plug my thing back in. But yeah, I mean, Hiram already raised the Olympics in '84 in Los Angeles. The Olympics in '84 in Los Angeles, Damien Sojourner writes about this and talks about this, of how crucial that was. I think guys like Mike Davis probably do too. How crucial that was to the buildup of the militarization of LAPD as well. And I think, movies like this, I don't know how intentional it is, but showing all of these, I don't know if 20 cops are blown away in this scene, something like that, right?
It's just a whole police department. Just say that. He blows away a police department.
Yeah. And in an era, right, when you had a bunch of, not 5 years, 10 years before this, right, in the whole decade leading up to it, you have a bunch of revolutionaries in the United States that do where the police and the state essentially go to war with them. I mean, the first SWAT team, deployment shootout is against the LA Black Panthers, right? There's they burn down the entire house with the Symbionese Liberation Army in LA in it, right? And members have to escape a burning building to get out. I mean, this is move bombing is 85, right? So a year later, but all of these things are going on at the time. And it's funny because on some level you can look at movies like this and First Blood and say, well, it's sort of weird, right? Because in the 80s, there was a comfort in Hollywood films or in these films that were shown to us of showing police. They're not the protagonists of the story here. And there's a comfort in showing us moves where they're just getting blown away, right? And if you go to First Blood, obviously they're basically the antagonists in that film. But like, what does that do in terms of like kind of priming an audience for we need to provide them more resources, more weapons, so on and so forth. And I think that it plays into kind of reactionary shit a lot, whether it's the intended goal or just a version of, an out product of kind of the whatever shitty politics of these directors and so on.
I mean, one thing I also know is, so to have cops in your movie, you have to actually get authorization because it's illegal to. It's actually considered. If I were to make a movie and have a cop, like a badge and all that type of stuff, it's considered impersonating a police officer, and it's an offense, right? And you could be arrested for it. So you have to get permits for it. So I could imagine if Cameron's like, I want some of the stuff, I want the cars. I could only imagine how they would talk to him. Like, yeah, like he does this thing where he like takes them all out, really, really scared. And like kind of to Jay's point, I don't think Cameron really gives a fuck about anything. I don't really know. He seems like he's a total nihilist and a total weirdo. And now he's in his, save the primitives phase. He's just a weirdo. But I do think the way they would talk to people like that is kind of similar to what Jay would say. Like, yeah, man, like, this is like, all the shit that's happening, about this happening in LA, they could kind of like, get into the cops kind of like emotions about it. Like, you're under attack, and this kind of way to show that, another way that you're under attack. Right. And what that does to their imagination. I think that's totally in some producer, or even not even Cameron, someone's, producers conversation towards letting them kind of like have all this access to, cop cars and shootouts and all the type of shit.
One note that I thought was really interesting, right, is like right after the scene, which we'll finish describing in a second, but they make a point to say this is the largest police deployment in California history, right, to go after really everybody involved, right, but the Terminator, because it's blown away all these cops and so on and so forth. And I looked it up. I was curious, like in 1983, like or 84, what was the largest one prior to that? And it was the Watts Rebellion, right? So like the replace, like, creating this alternative, film. And then the one that it's the LA Rebellion, right? That becomes the largest after that. So just interesting.
Again, the question, what if it was the juice? Are they getting more cops because the Terminator is the juice, right? You got a brother killing the whole entire department. Again, does the hood get involved? Does the hood now start backing the Terminator? They're like, wait, we up again, we back, baby, right? Because of the Watt stuff. It's a completely different movie at that point. Completely different movie.
Yeah, it's funny you said
it's
that.
Predator 2.
Well, you know what it also is one of Carpenter's earlier films, which I have a lot of trouble with, Escape from Precinct 13.
Yeah, assault on Precinct 13.
Assault. I'm getting confused with Escape from New York. Yeah, Assault on Precinct 13, which is
the amount of
a concept of the hood coming at, but they make the hood into zombies.
The hood would have rolled out, and the amount of vigilantes who would have also signed up to try to hunt down the OJ Terminator.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this would have been a completely different story. We would have never made it to the future. Right? It's like, nah, dog. This is you unleash something else right here.
Yeah.
The Helter Skelter. Somewhere Charlie Manson be doing his little dance and shit, and the Terminator's gonna be.
And I think it's why Cameron didn't want to have OJ, because he didn't want to unleash any of this shit. He wanted this to be completely sanitized.
Could have been such a better movie.
So now you get the sequence where, Sarah and Reese are hiding, and, he's like wounded. So she she kind of helps him, and, she insists, and they start connecting, and she asks him about like, what's my son like? And he goes, he's my height. Right. Starting these little drips about, who John Connor is and shit, which is kind of hilarious to me, that he's a great leader. She's asked about the father. He says, I don't know. He never talked about him. So he basically
he dies before the war.
Yeah, he says he dies. Yeah.
Yeah. But he says that first. But then at first he goes, well, I don't really know. It's like, it shows that Reese is a dummy, right? Like Reese is just like a dummy. Like he's just
Reese is dumb as hell.
He's a button, right? Man, I was gonna say something else, but let me not say that. But then and then she says, like, why did you come? And he's like, it was a chance to meet the legend. And it's like such a weird fucking thing, man.
But shout out to Sarah Connor. Because Sarah Connor turned into the Predator at that. Once they got to that little motel, Sarah Connor became a different person. She's like, what are the women like in the future? And he's like, oh, they're badass like fighters. She's like, nah.
He's like, good soldiers.
Right. She's like, nah. That's not what I'm talking about. And he's like, I don't know.
But that's the whole thing. It's such a fantasia. But that's what Sarah Connor is, like a really funky fantasia of a certain kind of sci-fi bro thinking. Like she is like think about it. The ideal woman is like the mother of the revolutionary or the resistance, soldier of that time. You get to go back in time, grudge match against a thing that can't be killed, and you get to be the father of the fighter of the
but does
future.
Does he know he's gonna be the father?
Not Reese, but I'm talking about the people who write it. He doesn't know that. One of the people Reese who write it, it's like their fantasy. It's like this like fantasy woman, and I'm just like, this is like where people's fantasies went in the 80s. Like I know people who love this shit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is where your fantasies go.
Because that whole
very strange.
The whole story and everything was weird, right? So first of all, Sarah Connor is just like, boom, she's putting on the moves. Once she gets into that motel, she's like, look, my date last night, because again, we're only talking about a day and a half, right? Like 2 days and a half. All this is happening. So she just met old boy. She spent the whole night killing or whatever. They get to the motel. She's like, look, my date last night fell through. You know what I mean? Like, boom. So she's on it. And he's telling this story. And he's like, I got no girlfriend. I'm basically a virgin. I'm just an incel back in the future who's just caught up in this war. And then my man's who's like the Che Guevara, Fidel Castro of the future of our time is like, oh, hey, lonely boy, here's a picture of my mom. Hold that. I know your 20-something hormones is going crazy right now. You need a little something. Here's a picture of my mom's. Right? I'm like, are you crazy? Are you dumb? Who does that? Right? Like we used to clown, like when we were teenagers, clown, like, oh, where's your mom at? Right? Or like, I knew this one dude who I didn't like, but his mom was wild cute. And I used to be there all the time, like, yo, where's your mom at? Where's your mom at? Right? No one, no boy, young man is voluntarily handing over a picture of their mom to some other freaked out young man, right? Just horned up young man or whatever. And then he's like, yo, I'm going to send you into the past to go meet my moms, yo. I know you ain't had none. Everybody's going to die. You've been looking at this picture. You've been holding on to this picture for a long ass time. You clearly in love with this picture. I'm going to send you back there to meet her. Who does that?
Well, it raises the question, right? Does he already know? I mean, like, this is the problem with the whole time travel loop question, right? Because how does he exist if Reese didn't go back, right? Like he
doesn't,
right? So like, how does he send his father back, who's younger than him?
That's why it's the ultimate fantasy for the Reese person, because it's like your life, the life of the universe is compelled by you doing this action.
But wait. If his dad dies before the war, then his dad can't be Reese because Reese is in the war, to your point. Which means there's another dude who the movie's not capturing who made John Connor. Reese signed up for this mission to deflower himself in the past. Like, hey, boy, look, these robots are coming. You don't really got a lot of options here no more. Here's my mom's address. You know what I'm saying? Do you? He dies, but there's got to be another person who makes John Connor. No,
they say it's Sarah. That's like the whole assumption is that Reese is just sperm in that kind of way, right? And maybe he has like a fighting spirit. This is where they all get metaphysical. But the person, because he says it,
the war, how does he get sent back? Because they're in the middle of the war. Reese is in the war.
He does die before the war because Reese dies in the past. It's like it's a fudging. Yeah, he just exactly. I think being too literal with it makes no sense.
I think Sarah Connor was having a hell of a weekend and was like, "Yo,
no
robot who's killing the whole police department."
No,
fuck it, dog. Like it's the 80s. Whatever.
It's just basically saying he dies before the war because Reese did die before the war because he went back in time. It's just time travel idiocy in that kind of way. And what is it? The thing is, because Sarah says at the end, you can never let him know. Or she says you have to send him back when she has the tape. I don't know if she says you can't let him know, though. Does she say that? He can't know.
She wrestles with what to tell him about his father, basically. Yeah. But she's like, in this movie, she's still trying to figure out basically what to convey to the son. But of course, at the end, you get the Polaroid, right? That she then gives to her son to give to Reese. So,
but that's my point. She's got nothing to say about her dad because it was just some guy. She's like, I had a boyfriend from the future. He was badass. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That my son hooked me up with. Crazy, but whatever, right? Like my son sent a strapping young buck to the past to help me out when my date fell through. He got killed. I killed this robot. The adrenaline was still going through me. There was some other dude who caught me at this like very vulnerable time. I don't know what to tell you about this fuck because he was a nobody. But my boyfriend, Kyle Reese, motherfucker, make sure you write poems about Kyle Reese in the future. Don't worry about this man Connor. Just talk about Kyle Reese. That's how it played out, bro. We don't want to deal with that. That Sarah Connor was just like she was in control of her body, of her autonomy, of everything. It was like, look, I'm gonna do me. Fuck y'all. You know
is this the progressive Sarah Connor?
Yeah, she's like, I have a baby with whoever. Kiss my ass. I'm fucking, you know what I'm saying, leading the resistance. I can do whatever the fuck I want.
These are the debates that we would have in the 80s for hours.
No, this is true. This is what Hiram is showing. Before you had the internet and chat rooms, this is what people would talk about with the Terminator. It was annoying. You would have the wild, like the wild theories, right? No, you got to understand. This is how it really was. And, oh, man, it go too far. So anyway, so they have their little meeting, conversation in the joint. And then Reese has another one of his flashbacks. I remember this one as a kid really scaring the shit out of me. The one where they're like in the bunker. You see all the kids, right? They're like in the bunker and everybody's like, kind of like, emaciated and like eating little bits of things. There's like rats and everywhere.
They got exactly
eating rats. Yeah, all that type of stuff, right? And then there's like a screening process, right? But of course, and it's the dogs, right? The dogs are the ones who can tell the Terminator is a Terminator, right? And they start barking. So a Terminator then comes in. And Reese is like, he's in there. He comes in with like his like deployed people to kind of rest up. But then the Terminator comes in and just starts like, mega blasting everybody. And it's like one of his death nightmares that, the Terminator is going to come and get him. I remember that sequence as a kid, like giving me nightmares. That was like a nightmare thing. I would constantly like reference in my brain, So you have that sequence, right? And then
I'm not eating no rat. I don't care how bad the future gets. I'm telling you right now, I'm not eating no rat.
They always love doing that. They always love doing that. People are like
suicide mission. I ain't eating no fucking rats.
Yo. Yeah, and that was another thing. Like, I watched Fist of the North Star over the weekend because, like, I was like after watching Terminator and Odyssey, I was like, I need to do another Decline of Civilization anime movie, and I watched it, and like they do the same shit in it, and it's like this obsession with like it's so interesting to me the dystopian vision. And like I actually had asked, I know someone who's like a scholar on dystopia a bit and like those things, and I had asked him like straight out, like, do you think dystopia is like right-wing fantasy? And he says you could say a lot of it is. He says a lot of his studies, the people who've written dystopian things, the way they kind of frame them, the things that they're obsessed with, is definitely like it comes from like right. They may not be right-wing people, but they're like drawing from a lot of right-wing kind of thought processes of how civilization will fall and what man has to do and what they feel is necessary to display for people to kind of think about the end of civilization. So then they go to the motel. Then they go to the motel, which is, he's there. She has to get supplies. Sarah tries to call her mom, but doesn't realize it's Arnold with his different voice. Go ahead. What are you gonna say?
No, that part is so funny.
I know.
Yeah,
I like that shit when I was a kid.
I love you too, sweetie.
I love you too, sweetie.
And it's a good way to get around the fact that Arnold can't act, right? Is to have other people voice these different scenes, so that he doesn't have to do all the voices. Yeah.
I mean, he does like nothing in the movie. Like you notice like he has to really do nothing in the movie at all. Like he did more Conan than he did this.
He's a robot.
Yeah.
But it's cool. Yeah, the voice changing thing was cool. I thought the voice changing thing was cool. Yeah. I thought that was cool.
I love it. It's cool. It's fun. Right.
Yeah.
And then you get the sequence that Hiram was beginning to reference where like, she sees all of his wounds.
They're also making bombs, right? That's the other thing.
They're making pipe bombs.
She makes a joke. She's like, "Oh, what's for breakfast or something?" He says, like, pipe bombs or some shit, right? And she's like, "Oh wow, like this dude he's for real. Like he don't let up."
Telling you, man, she was on it.
But then she's like trying to be like nice and like happy, and then she asks about what like Hiram says about like the women in the future is like good soldiers and all that. And then she kind of asks him, I think, why he went back. He tells her about the picture, and he says he always wonders what she was thinking in the picture. And then he makes the big admission at the end of the scene. I'm telling you, this is like that Fantasia. I came back for you. Right? Like it's just like this is
mom's at.
Exactly. I came for you, Sarah. I came, right? Like so, like this idea that he's like always known that he's loved her, right? Like he's always known that he's loved her based on a picture that he saw of her, and the fact that
would call him a gooner. Kids creepy as hell. Gooner. That's
creepy. It's so creepy. Exactly.
Right.
Thank you.
I've had your picture for years, Ma. I came to meet you in real life. I had your picture for years, Ma. I wanted to see the real thing in person. I came back 40 years for the mean.
Listen, where your mom?
What the girls like in the future? Dead. Unavailable.
But go back to the 80s, bruh.
Go back to the 80s, though.
Nothing but Sarah Connors.
Could have went anywhere else. You know what I'm saying? That war don't pop off till 29. I could have went and I came all the way back to the 80s to Big Jeff. You know what I'm saying? Introducing Big Reese.
And this is the
hungry and then starving.
This is the thing. You can only make jokes at this shit. Because if you think about it seriously, it's nothing but comedy. This is where I eventually came with this movie when you got a little bit more aware about life. I was like, What the entire fuck is this fantasy? Like, what is this self-expression? This is weird. Cameron in the truck driver years, I want that book. I want that memoir. What was you doing?
I don't want that memoir.
Actually, this movie is that memoir.
That's wow, man.
And then the whole scene culminates with what? A sex scene. Them making love. The whole thing culminates.
It's what he came to die for.
Right.
Simping to a whole other level.
Right.
It's like,
and it's
Kyle Reese is king of the simps. Ain't nobody simp harder than Kyle Reese in the history of humanity. That man said, I'm going back for your mom. I'm gonna die for that.
You get the piano version of the score. Dun, 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 dun. Like the Liberace piano version of the score. It's like, Jesus, Cameron, you're a weirdo, bruh. Like, this is some weirdo shit. And then you have that, and then like I always loved like the clip after. You get a shot of like Arnold on the bike, and then like they're like happy, they just made love. You know, it's the first time you see Reese kind of like, you know, he's you know, he's a little lighter on his feet, right? And then
a whole 30 seconds later, because that was Kyle Reese's first time ever doing the do. That whole clip was the whole moment. That clip was the whole moment.
Right. And then you get Terminator Vision, and then you get like the last 23 minutes of the movie, which is a fucking all-out final grudge match. Right. You know, starting with like, you know, Reese on the road and the car, and he got, I mean, I can't even track it. Like Arnold has like the bike, and then he has the big ass truck. Right. I don't even know how we even want to go through this or what we want to go through of it. It's just so much shit. It's just like calamity.
The truck scene, when it blows up and it flips, and Arnold's Terminator body is sliding across the street. I had to pause it to see, it was like, it's just the head and clothes because it's flat. It's like flattened out. The special effects.
Yeah, like he's throwing like the pipe bombs in the middle of like under a bridge, which is kind of crazy.
There's not many cops anymore, though. Like you don't really see the cops anymore.
It's like, did they all deploy in like one area? It's supposed to be the biggest deployment in history. Why are they in like
chilled out? I think they were like, you know what? Forget it.
Y'all went to East LA or some shit. Like, what the fuck? I don't understand.
Yeah, they went to go harass Mexicans and black people. Exactly. They're like, this is what we do. Let's just
They went to Echo Park. Right. To Echo Park and Compton.
Some Mexicans and black folks instead because we pissed off. We can't beat this robot, so let's just fucking do this shit over here.
And they're like, what the fuck, bro? Like, this is what we doing, right?
Right. Beating up OG Bobby Johnson over there. Right. Yeah. Nah, that turns into a whole other movie.
Yeah.
There's no cops no more. You would think the military thing, the state police would come out. Nothing. It's just them and the machine.
Yeah. An interesting thing too, like I was looking at what they wrote about this series in National Security Cinema, and not a lot, like it's a short section, but the Department of Defense relationship with this series comes in the third movie, right? So the first, I mean, it'd be interesting to delve into more detail. They don't with Terminator 2 because there is way more tech and, you know, all that stuff in T2, and I'm curious about that. But the military gets involved at the third one and does actually make script changes and stuff like that to the.
I mean, it's a full-on military plot with 3. 3 has a full-on military plot because, like, what is it?
Yeah.
The girlfriend of John Collar by Claire Danes, I think. She's like the daughter of like a general or some shit in the movie.
That's
what I remember.
But what I was just saying is I just think it's like these first ones, because you don't have those kind of institutional relationships and there's not the budget. That's why we don't see the National Guard, you know, deployed in the film and stuff like that the way it would be in something later.
100%. Yeah, like 100%. And they probably I actually wonder where they shot it too. I'd be curious, like in what areas that they did it in, because they would have to shut down a lot of it's probably like really outskirts areas and things like that, like outside of LA, right? So yeah, you have all that fighting and like, the Terminator keeps getting beat the fuck up, right? Losing more, right? You getting more of it. And like I said, you weren't on this, Hiram. I said the first time I ever watched this movie was actually from the end. I was like 8 years old, I said, and I woke up on the couch and my mom, I think, fell asleep too. And it was on like Cinemax or some shit. And I literally I see fire, and then I see that thing with the Terminator coming up, out the thing. And I was like, what the hell is this? And my mom was still asleep, and I was like, I'm watching the rest of this shit. I watched it, and I had no idea what the movie was. I saw the whole end. I was like, I remember the part where she smashes his head. I was like, yo, this is cool, man. And I think it took me maybe a year. It probably was when the Terminator 2 rollout started, because it started 2 years before the movie came out, that I was like, oh, that's the Terminator, the first one. And I ended up watching it.
Real talk. I never really liked, to this day, I don't like sci-fi movies. Like, it was cool or whatever, but I never really liked sci-fi movies. And so even seeing robots and shit, even as a kid, it was kind of like, that's cool, but it was never I like Vietnam movies as a kid, which is weird for a child to be into, but the robot stuff was never mine. Because as you can tell from all of these videos I do with y'all, I lack imagination enough for these movies. You know what I'm saying? Everything ends up getting very literal. And so it's hard to I've always been like that. So it gets hard to disconnect, and just go with the flow. Be like, yeah. It's just difficult.
Yeah, I was very pilled by nuclear holocaust fears when I was a kid growing up. I had nightmares and shit when I was 6 or 7 years old and stuff like that. It was definitely big on my brain. I don't know ground zero, for lack of a better term, of that, but I think that's why these movies attached to me, like this and Road Warrior and stuff like that. I had that kind of baked into my thing. I think even for a little bit, I thought it was a certainty that we would eventually get to that point. I mean, to be honest with you, the only reason why I got out of it was that I read Huey Newton and I read the Panthers. I'll be straight the fuck up. It was maybe that and a little bit of PE. Though I still had a lot of that nihilism still kind of in it too. Buster, I blame Buster. There's only 5 years left. I was definitely in that shit too. I watched the X-Files. We'll get to that.
Yeah, that I was more concerned about that than nuclear bombs. The nuclear bombs. I mean, growing up in the 80s, in the early 90s, yeah, that was always a thing, and you kind of they made it seem like this is a very, very real thing, right? And then for us, because I grew up in Connecticut, they make the nuclear subs in Groton, Connecticut. So I've had teachers who are if there's ever nuclear fallout, they're hitting Connecticut first. They're not even wasting time with New York. There's nothing in New York. They'll just hit, because that's where all your nuclear subs and stuff are at. And so we're because we thought, cool, New York's getting hit. Sucks to be them. You know what I'm saying? At least we good. And he's actually, nah, it's us. They just got Times Square. And we're fuck. So I guess I just kind of gave up, whatever, right? It's just,
yeah,
it is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely remember all the nuclear stuff. We did have to do the drills where you got underneath your desks to prepare for a bomb to come, as if that was going to save us, getting under the little piece of wood, but I don't know. I mean, I do think that these movies obviously treated it as a very real possible future. But I don't know, maybe it was because of my parents. Everybody would talk about, I remember when we learned about mutually assured destruction in school, right? And so the whole idea, for people who don't know what that even means, because it's not talked about as much anymore, was just as the nuclear arsenals developed to a certain to a certain level with the US and the USSR, that basically that the fact that war or nuclear war would descend into like the destruction of both, and that was basically unavoidable, that prevented it from actually occurring, right? Because they just wouldn't want to do that. I think in some ways, I actually think there's more concern now around, or should be more concern now around, the use of nuclear weapons. I mean, we've seen like the use of depleted uranium. We've seen like, discussions around tactical nukes. There's certain folks who think certain bombings that have been so severe and where there's been levels of radiation that have been found afterwards actually show that there has been some utilization of tactical nukes at this point. But I think that that is still a real threat. It's not so much, though. I mean, I think the real question today is, if nuclear weapons were used in some way, would it lead to the kind of mutually occurred destruction, right? Because it would be a question of how would Russia, how would China, right, respond? Because it would be the US, obviously, that used them, or Israel, right? That would be the question. But yeah, it's dark, and I mean, we did think about it a lot. I don't think I was as afraid of it. I think my parents probably kind of assured me that they did not think it was something that actually would occur, but they also had memories of the Cuban Missile Crisis and of different moments where, it felt like nuclear war was a lot closer to possibly happening. So yeah.
And I think that's where like movies like the Terminator are really pernicious, because then it makes it like a metaphysical kind of inevitability of like human nature and human condition, rather than us looking at political problems and like even thinking about like the political changes and even like the technological changes of what nuclear weapons can do. So kind of what Jay is talking about, right? Rather than like, if this shit were to pop off, it would just be because humanity like devolved and not because of imperialism hits a certain stage and the imperialist nations decided to do a particular kind of activity, right? And I think this AI shit also has another kind of funky thing on two levels, because like, so in the film, right, you get the end of it. Yeah, we definitely gotta talk about Reese's death in a second, though. I think that's kind of, yeah, we gotta talk about that shit. But like in the film, you have the whole thing where she's able to like defeat the Terminator, right? And and she knows about like the dark winds that are to come, right? And there's like a certain kind of position that I think where people in this kind of thought is like, well, I got to prepare for the dark times rather than like fight for like the dark times to not happen, right? It's like this inevitability of like a shitty tomorrow, right? And you kind of have to wait for it. But another end of that is like the Nick Lands of the world, who say that's actually what humanity need. And we actually need to be irradiated so a better version can come up, because they have this whole AI thing that like we need to kind of go into that. And that's a big like movement that's like kind of come online in like the kind of right wing space, right? Which has like interesting overlaps with some parts of like the left, and people like Mark Fisher and Nick Land had a fucking relationship. I mean, it's weird. It's a lot of strange shit.
Then what, like complete destroy everything, and you have to kind of like live like the Flintstones?
No, like, that humans in their philosophy, humans should be extinct. Humans need to let AI become the next evolution, is their thought.
Gotcha.
Evil shit.
Yeah, or like the cyborgs, right? Like that we need, yeah. All that
who is it? Kurzweil, right? It's like it's kind of like the Kurzweil thing, right? About like we will live on, right? That was like Kurzweil's whole thing, that like you make like an AI version of yourself, and like so like your flesh will die, but then there'll be an AI version of you that will kind of live on. I mean, it's fucking Looney Tunes.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I brought the Flintstones because that is a conspiracy theory about the Flintstones, right? That the Flintstones are a a post-apocalyptic, that the Flintstones aren't the past. The Flintstones are actually this post.
Oh, I never heard that.
Yeah, because they were like, I mean, the dinosaurs kind of throws it off, but they were like, the Flintstones has all of the modern stuff. They have cars, they've got computers, they got telephones, they have, right? So they have this understanding and this knowledge of the modern world and modern technology, but they're reduced to having to use primitive means to still recreate, right, the modern times or the modernity that they once knew or they understood. And so they were like, so the Flintstones aren't actually prehistoric times. It's this post-apocalyptic, when everything is reduced to rubble and you kind of have to go back, but you still have the mind of the modern days of the future, right? And now the dinosaurs throw that, but
I never knew that one.
I've got nothing else to contribute to these conversations when you add all this smart shit. So I'm like, the Flintstones, some more lunchroom conversations. The Flintstones are really the future.
Well, let's get to Reese in his. Is he a Christ-like sacrifice? I don't know. What is Reese? He's not a Christ.
Gooner.
What is he?
A gooner.
Like how do we see Reese at the end of this shit sticking the pipe bomb, trying to roll off and knowing he's gonna die, right? He doesn't even, and it's funny, his like final image shot is so like flippant, like he's kind of like weirdly in the frame, right? You're like, damn, like he don't even get like a good death.
I think Reese does get a kind of good, because Reese got shot way in the beginning, right? And he's just still going throughout the whole movie shot. Then he gets shot crazy in the truck, right? In the truck scene on the bridge when they flip the truck. He survives that truck because he's got no seatbelt on, right? So he should have been ejected, but he survives that too. And then he's still running around. My man is bleeding out with bullets and all kinds of concussions and trauma on. And then he's also depleted because he had sex for the first time. And so his body's also trying to recover from that. Like, my man held out for as like an uncanny amount of time before he finally
and then went toe to toe with the Terminator with a pipe.
Because she gave him that pep talk. Because son was gone. Like when he's in the truck, you look at his eyes. He's gone.
Go, soldier! Right? You see the Sarah moment.
The Sarah, it switched. It switched, right? She's like, get up, soldier. He's like, aye, captain. Mayo, you have so many bullets inside you and glass and infection. You know what I'm saying? But he's still fighting the Terminator with a pipe. And then this is the best of 2029 technology. You can go back in time, but you can also beat this thing with a pipe. Come on, man.
And a pipe I
don't like that.
But no, he doesn't. It's still alive. It's still alive. It's and it comes after Sarah, and then she has to. You're terminated. This, right? Sarah gets to kill him. You get the nice close shot of Linda Hamilton. Cameron was like, "That's my future wife right there. Just give me, let me get 2 more divorces in, and then I'm going out with Linda."
I think you're talking about Reese.
Cameron, and that's the other hilarious thing. That Cameron marries Linda Hamilton. Then he eventually leaves her again too, and like that's
crazy. I didn't know he married her.
Oh, dude, Cameron's marriage. Yeah. He left. He was married to Catherine Bigelow when he did T2, and he ended T2 divorced from Catherine Bigelow and married to Linda Hamilton. And then
starving.
Yeah, I mean, Cameron is a.
Yeah. All right,
well. What's funny is Bigelow might be more of an imperialist than he is in her movie making. Was it Zero Dark 30?
Yeah. I'm sitting thinking about Samantha Youssef. I mean, like the stories probably that exist with James Cameron and all of these women is probably fucking horrible shit.
Oh man, I mean, he has like his list. I mean, like he has like 6, and now he's been with Susie Amos, I think, for a while now. But like, it's wild, and they always happen around the movies, which is so weird. It's like it's such a strange thing, you know.
I mean, that's that it happens around the movies. I think makes it even more creepy, right?
Because that's what I mean. Yeah,
all of the kind of quid pro quo, right? That could go into that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. It's all funky. Yeah. So then, she smashes the Terminator, and then you get a flash forward to her pregnant in a what do they call those type of, is a hatchback? What are they called?
No, that's like a Jeep.
A Jeep. Yeah, like a little Jeep or something like that.
One of those Wranglers Jeep with the top off.
Yeah. And she's doing
out in the desert.
And then you see your first indigenous folks.
Right. Reading Spanish with the dictionary to ask for gas.
Yeah, like they don't speak English.
So wait, so she go to Mexico or she's still in the States?
I think she's going to Mexico. That's how I always read like she's on her way to crossing the border.
I think maybe she's already crossed it. I think she's already crossed because all the writing is in Spanish at the
you're right. You're right. Oh, you are right.
It could be San Diego too. It could be Southern California. It's all
you got to go past San Diego though. I think for that. I'm not from my memory, but I could be wrong.
San Diego's basically like a Navy camp.
Exactly. Yeah, she could be someone with Tijuana. She's probably like they're trying to reference like Tijuana probably. And then she's like on like the tape, and telling that he needs to like basically send his dad back. It's important. What is it? We only live for a day, but we love the lifetime.
But to my point, right? To my point, Sarah Connor has a little baby bump, right? So if you can see the bump, she's probably like maybe like 4 or 5 months, somewhere around there, right? And so we're talking about a 4 or 5 month window where we don't know what Sarah Connor's up to, but we do know Sarah Connor is turned up. Like we know Sarah Connor is up, right? She's been activated. She knows who she is. She knows what her mission is. Sarah Connor don't care about nothing, right? This is where the mystery, and then these probably the whole of the movie or book are like, who is John Connor's dad? Because it's not Kyle Reese. It's not Kyle Reese.
You were gonna ruin a whole generation.
Dog.
Of sci-fi boys.
I'm giving opportunity for somebody to write that story. There was a whole other incel that Sarah Connor, got with, who was an even bigger loser than Kyle Reese, which is why he don't get talked about. And then the kid is like, hey, can I have some money or else my dad will beat me? That was wild too. I was like, come on now, what? And then the man translate. I thought the adult was going to be like, I'm assuming the adult is his dad because there's no other people there. And then the kid's dad, if that's his dad, what did he say? He said, give him money or else his dad's going to beat him. Meaning me.
It's so this is why you couldn't have Cameron have the homeboys at the beginning be Mexican. That shit would have been so racist. Imagine racist. That sequence. You would have had Arnold say some shit. Like it would have
Arnold doing Mexican accents, doing Chicano accents.
Like I'm glad the only brother in the movie is Paul Winfield in an authority position.
Hey, fucking R2D2.
Exactly. Yo, look at this motherfucker right here.
Yeah, what the fuck you doing here, R2D2?
And it would have been somebody like, somebody like Issei Morales' like first role. And like,
it would have been some Puerto Rican playing a Mexican. Hey, E.T. phone home.
Which he did in about 3 years with La Bamba.
Hey, E.T. phone home. You look
so bad. So bad, which he did, which Issei ended up doing it. Native New Yorker
and killed it.
Yeah, I think we have to do La Bamba. That's gonna be interesting.
And killed it. Or they would have Lou Diamond Phillips, because Lou Diamond Phillips is another one who likes playing playing Chicano roles.
On a more serious tip, not that Hiram's line of interrogation here is unserious in some way, but
Jared's like, this getting a little too borderline for the YouTube. Let's lock in. Let's lock down.
No. But I do think, again, just like to these kind of different narrative tropes and how they're used in Hollywood, right? Like it all becomes similar to what we talked about last week when we did Back to the Future. You know, this whole struggle is solely dependent upon the creation of two people, basically. Like Sarah Connors and John Connors are everything. And they taught us how to organize, they taught us how to fight, right? Like that's the whole, it's like, and by the way, I don't think we talked about this because Reese talks about that they're in slave labor camps to actually like take the other dead humans that the robots have killed and dispose of their bodies. So this is what human beings are doing in 2020, in the 2020s in this thing, right? But John Connor's the one that taught us how to organize and taught us how to fight, and just like this idea that like those conditions wouldn't produce John Connors, right? Like that it has to go back to, you know, we got to make a sperm donor back to the 80s.
That man's starving.
In order to have the revolution, right? That the revolution is and you know, I mean, and in that sense, I do think there is a lot of this belief too among even people on the left, right? When you get too caught up in this idea of like, who is our Malcolm today? Who is our, you know, like this, not to say that we couldn't use better and leaders with like bigger, you know, all of those things, but like the notion that struggle is solely dependent upon these great men and this great leadership rather than organizations and parties and, you know, all of that stuff. So anyway.
No, but that's a good point. This is a very incel. Yo, the 80s was soft. Y'all soft. Y'all need y'all need the future, which is really the past, to come back and teach y'all. Right. But it's also real. And to kind of even add further to your point, this shit about like, it's not going to produce a Sarah Connor either. An organizer, a military organizer. So basically, Sarah going to go off to Tijuana and like hang out with the fugitives, right? And then that's going to turn her to be a military person. And it's funny. I read a really dope critique of the fugitive character in movies. And the writer, and I forget their name, I can put it in the chat later or something. She talks about that in a depoliticized world, the single fugitive becomes very attractive, right? The outlaw, right? Over the kind of revolutionary groups, right? People who organized, who defended communities rather than these fugitives. So this idea that Sarah essentially becomes a fugitive, and they really put it into activity in 2, where she's like this lone wolf, that the lone wolf is going to organize humanity. Huh?
Yeah. And I think like thinking about the period that this comes out of, I mean, and it's not even distance, like when Assad is liberated in 80, right? Something like that. Right, 79, 80, right in there. 79. Yeah. So I mean, there was an underground, right, still present in this period, but particularly like strong one in, you know, the 1970s. And that when you watch this movie, it is kind of giving you a very particular look at this kind of like fugitive underground idea. But it's very, you know, it's just like hanging out in a motel room, screwing, making pipe bombs, right? And like and attacking the Terminator. It's very depoliticized, all of it, right? Like it becomes about this idea that like individuals are so key to this historical arc that we have to preserve and save specific individuals, but it's not, there's no politics to it. It's not like, and one of the ways they evacuate all those politics, right, is also to just make it that man versus machine thing. And then you don't have to deal with any of the class struggle or anything between humans or the people who made the machines or any of that, you know.
Yeah.
John Connor.
What if
John Connor was 44 during the war, right?
Yeah.
If he's born in 85, the movie's 84, so he'd be born in 85. That's 2029, so he's 44 years old. Middle-aged John Connor out there leading the resistance against.
Only fight he had when he played Kung Fu at the arcade.
Right. Just handing out pictures to his mom.
Yeah. See who bites.
Yeah. I want to know how many times they keep sending folks back to get it right. Like, how many times does the future keep changing, right? Like, do you keep sending people back in time to like redo it?
So that's a big mistake in the movie. They do the one possible future line.
Right. He says that, yeah.
That's a huge mistake. I said the only way this movie works is if it can't work is if life is predetermined. But then that's why it makes no sense, because if life is predetermined, you can't change it. So,
but then because there's the butterfly effects too, right? Like, you killing the wrong Sarah Connor, how does that affect everything else, right? Like the future changes because you killed the wrong Sarah Connor, and you caused all these other stuff to happen that didn't happen. Because now the policing, the technology, all of that, right, that will come out of, to y'all's point before, the LAPD having had their whole department killed by a robot in 1984, by 86, right? It's going to be a whole other thing that 2029 is going to look completely different. And then does he give another picture of his mom to another young man and like, yo, go back?
Yeah, and that's why time travel is fucking dumb as shit. Because the only way that it works is if like there's never any variation ever. It can't vary.
And also, why didn't he just go kill the little kid Sarah Connor instead of like adult Sarah Connor? Well, we know why, because Kyle Reese had to get his Yamin off. But other than that,
exactly, that's the only reason why.
The Terminator could have went back, or the Resistance could have just went and killed the inventor of Skynet before he even starts. Right, he even starts all of this stuff.
It's dumb. It's annoying.
That's like going and I'm not gonna say it, but you take out a certain somebody when he's still at Harvard, you don't have to deal with a lot of the stuff that we got to deal with now.
Well, don't they establish that they didn't invent it? It was the people who invented the time travel were the Terminators, and he basically takes a ride.
The people, the Skynet, right? Like the company who eventually created like you can just walk it all the way back and
I know. I'm with you. It's just dumb. That's why I can't stand time travel movies. Man. It's fucking stupid.
Because the other thing too is the bigger, not a bigger question, but another question for me was like, as a non-believer, but it's still like, then where's God in all of that? Because if humans and robots can like go back and make the future redetermine time, you know what I'm saying? At what point? You know what I'm saying? Now you're crossing over into some whole other ability of predetermination of life, of people's lives, of the future, and all that. Where does the faith fall into that?
Where there has been a lot of like scholarly cinematic writing on this, and a lot of the assumption is that in the 80s, outside of movies that explicitly have God storylines, like are fundamentally atheist. And that we live in a godless world, which is also part of the reason. And this comes from the 70s. It's from the 70s on, and it's really that's what part of why The Exorcist was so popular. They posit, because The Exorcist gave an answer to that in a particular kind of way, right? But These are fundamentally like highly reactionary atheist positions of cinema. They do not believe, unless it's explicitly stated, and even then there's a cynicism to it. What is that? Those George Burns movies? Oh God, you devil! Remember those? So those are like really like they would have those. The 90s, it begins to change. They talk about it. There's a different kind of thought about gods and things like that. And you have a lot of movies about angels, right? That start to happen. What is it? Like John Travolta plays an angel.
Yeah, Michael. Yeah.
Right? You have that. But in like Hollywood,
Angels in the Outfield.
Angels in the Outfield. Yep. I mean, maybe I haven't seen Field of Dreams in a long time. Does that deal with God?
It deals with
I don't know. We have to
afterlife.
Yeah, I think it kind of does.
If there's an afterlife, then there has to be right.
Yeah, there's definitely like things I'm sure that peek out of it, but fundamentally, for the most part, a kind of certain kind of atheism is predominant in these movies.
I mean, I would just say too that science fiction as a genre is not all. There are, whatever religious, like, there are sci-fi books that incorporate gods or the idea of gods for sure. But there's a lot of atheists within the sci-fi realm and are very, concerned with these ideas of, like humanity and technology in the way that like Philip K. Dick and others were. Somebody brought up Isaac Asimov in the chat. I'm pretty sure he was an atheist and he wrote a lot of the stuff that was very influential to films in like the 80s, 90s, and so on, and also 70s. But
well, to that point, and we talked about it a little bit with Blade Runner, they take out the religion question that's actually in the original Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. There's a whole religious narrative in the novel, and Blade Runner literally takes it out. It's not a part of the story at all. And Ridley Scott goes for literally a god, like, because the kind of whole thing is about God on Earth and those types of things. So like they definitely don't believe in that.
Yeah, and I mean Philip K. Dick's book version is a big critique of religion too, which is also like they also I think didn't want to deal with that, right? But just having this. But yeah, I mean that was this was also a big. The 80s were also a time, and especially where I grew up, in rural white America, where we had people that would hold their kids out of like science classes because evolution was taught, and things like this, because it'd be like, this is godless education and we disagree with it and all that. And it also created a whole like very conservative homeschooling movement as well. Like, so those kind of, I would think they wouldn't want to delve into those debates, but also there was a lot of concern or critique of 80s cinema from Christian sectors as being godless and atheist and all this kind of stuff.
And then you get Kirk Cameron doing his highly right-wing religious movies. What was it? What was those movies he did? What were those movies he did in the 90s? Is it like the 90s he did them, right? Or was it the aughts? Those movies, because then you had the rise of like Christian cinema.
It's the aughts, right? You're talking about like the Left Behind,
Left Behind, yeah, and Left Behind and all that type of stuff. Because he quit Hollywood because he said it was godless. He
from Growing Pains to Left Behind,
right? Well, and like
what is Left Behind? I'm trying to see.
It's a book series based on the kind of on a Revelations interpretation. That like, what is it? The 144,000 people. What is it? It's like we'll go into
the kingdom of heaven. Yeah. So it's like the it's. I mean, it's like it connects with all the like Christian Zionism and all that kind of stuff, right? Of like who's going to be killed in the apocalypse.
The scariest movie I've ever watched in my life that till this day freaks me out was a Christian movie. And it was like people randomly disappearing.
It probably was one of the Left Behinds. They had
to get like the mark of the beast. It was like a barcode, and the government was rounding people up who didn't want to take the barcode. and then they were like cutting their heads off with a guillotine because they wouldn't take the barcode. But there were random people who were disappearing, and I was just like, this is the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I never watched another Christian movie again. I think I became a non-believer after that. I was like in middle school. I was like, I don't want anything to. This is crazy.
Yeah. To Jay's point, my uncle's. I mean, she's my aunt, ex-wife, but she's my aunt, right? But like by marriage, but they've been divorced. Her family are like fundamentalist Christians, and they don't watch or look at any kind of like popular culture, but they love those Left Behind movies. And I remember they had them all on the shelves and other kinds of like Christian movies. And like when the movies would come out, they would go see them, right? And I remember my aunt's mom, she used to like try to like give me conversations about how basically I would like I engage in, you know, ungodly shit by like listening
Devilishment.
Yeah, she would try to give it, and I wouldn't go over there. My mom, I wouldn't go over there after a while. I'd be like, "No, I'm good," right? But yeah, I mean, that's how I learned about those movies, and then I did go on like a thing on Kirk Cameron for a while because I was like, "Oh, this shit is wild," because you know, yeah, it's wild shit.
So it's like, how does that stuff then play in today, right? Because we're moving towards Terminator times without all the crazy shit. We're definitely in like Terminator times, right? We're like the YouTube, the Meta, everything is hoarding as much information and feeding the AI as possible. The data centers are tearing up, right? We've got we started out talking about robot teachers in the cloud. Like we are definitely there. By the time, you know, within the next 10 years, this whole world is going to look completely different. It feels almost like, and I was talking to my son about this, how I'm a part of the greatest generation humanity has ever known, right? Those who like were like kids in the 80s and then were teenagers in the 90s. So that little, where everything was analog and then it went digital. So you lived in both worlds and you saw the world just completely change. And I feel like we're in that now, where you're like growing up in this one sort of like digital world, but we're moving into this whole other AI thing, right? Within the next 10 years, free of all this. I mean, and they make it look cool. They make it so it's not robots killing us right now, and that sort of like but I mean, the police state is here, the flock cameras, the cell phone surveillance, everything is here. But then where inside of all of their Christian Zionism, their Christian fundamentalism, this whole like traditional movement or whatever, does that God question fit in the future that they're trying to create based off of these robots, based off of this AI, based off of, right, the same folks who are pushing this sort of like Christian fundamentalism are also doing this godless shit, right?
I don't think it's the same groups of people.
Okay. No, I mean, Teal's thing with the Antichrist is fundamentally different. He does have an Antichrist theory, but it's fundamentally different. And I think if you want to think of it in terms of Hollywood, I think the multiple futures thing is actually more popular now. And ideas of things like metaverses and kind of like weird, like unifying theories are of like large kind of like big tents. And I think it depends. I think there's a lot more like there's a way that some of people I do think still have that kind of like godlessness in the movies, or that there are gods, right? But I also think the advent of Marvel and people's addiction towards like people who are humans, like literally defying physics on screen all fucking day. Because that's the thing about Terminator that's different than, say, like watching Avengers. Reese doesn't defy physics that much, right? There's like little shit like he doesn't have a seatbelt on, but he's not out there like, you know, doing backflips. You know what I'm saying? And then like, you know, hitting shit, right? Like there's a real grounding, right? The one that can defy physics is the one that's not human. Now, you know, Hawkeye is somehow, even though he has no superpowers, is able to fucking be in a battle against the fucking aliens rocking out and be able to survive that shit in the same way, him and Black Widow, the same way that fucking the Hulk can. And then also bodies that are human for some reason, just because they can throw some fire, can withstand blasts that are like, that would fucking burn a normal human body. And so I think this kind of idea of like man as God also, I think, is also kind of risen up for a lot of folks. But I think it's all fundamentally chaotic. I think it's all weirdo shit.
But Hiram, you were talking more about like political, right? Like not so much in Hollywood, right?
Yeah. Political.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I said, they weren't the same. I think but I think this is like the coalition, right? Like when you think about like MAGA, right? You have everybody from those tech billionaires, the Thiels, the Zuckerbergs, et cetera. But then you do have the, then you do have the Christian conservatives and all of that. I mean, I do think it's chaotic, and I do think it's why, like Two Black talks about this sometimes in his different discussions. Like we shouldn't necessarily think of that constituency or coalition as necessarily long-term a durable alliance, right? Because there are major contradictions between somebody like Peter Thiel, who talks about the Antichrist, but you look at him and you're like, have you looked in the mirror? Are you sure it's not you, man? Like, I'm pretty sure it's you. And that is in coalition, right? And I think Trump has been, unfortunately, right, like a really singular figure in unifying a lot of different forces with extreme contradictions.
Mm-hmm.
I remember listening to this Catholic woman I used to work with in Oregon explain why she was voting for Trump, and our boss being like Trump, like Jesus says, grab her by the pussy. Excuse me for the blasphemy. Like, but that's, he was just like trying to like sit with her. Like, how does that make sense? Like, help me understand how you wade through that contradiction.
Yeah.
And I just think that, I don't know how sustainable all of that is, but it's scary. I mean, in terms of these forces together. So, yeah. I think in terms of the AI stuff, the one thing I would say too is just, again, like Dwayne's very helpful for me. Also, like John Bellamy Foster's written some good stuff on AI recently as well. Radhika Desai. I mean, one is to just remember that a lot of these claims and this hype around it is also based on these kinds of imaginations, that AI is going to become sentient and that it can just take over and be more powerful and able to do all this stuff that human beings can't do. But like, I also think that, and I don't remember where I was listening to this, but it was somebody else's talk, and I wish I could say it to credit them properly. But even among young people, right, there's a general understanding by a huge section of the population that doesn't see AI as like this revolutionary good future. If anything, they at least understand it as like, this is competition, right, for our jobs and so on and so forth. This is going to make it harder for us to find work. And then there's all these battles going on over data centers, and of course Iran has blown up a couple of the big Amazon ones in the Middle East too. But like I think there's actually a lot of coalescence of, which is funny because in some ways it is the man versus the machine thing. And I think the task is to get people a little bit beyond that, to understand that the people who are making these machines, and that class and that government, that's the problem, even more than the machines themselves. But people do understand that, this is a problem. And I think that's, I mean, you see in Philly, there's people who attack those stupid robots that deliver food all the time, like, yeah. So I don't know.
I mean, I just think that's where, like, kind of tie it back to movies a little bit. Like, this is where, like, because they don't do a political economy at all, they just become fundamentally escapist models where, I think it's something like Everything Everywhere All at Once, which you think about is a movie about like you can somehow change your possible future by a realization of who you were in the past, but it all has to do with your own personal life, right? So then you can write that and then like change your children's future, right, in that kind of way, by accepting, you know, that they're queer or something like that, right? Whatever the kind of contradiction that is keeping you from accepting your child, and you can get them off to have a better life. But that film, which is crazy because it's supposed to be about a space-time continuum totality, does not deal with political economy at all. Not even about immigration, like at all. And this, like, how this plays with that, with like the larger imagination of how people look at everything. And I actually see that as like a direct result from things like Terminator, right? Where they think they're being a bit more progressive because they're bringing in politics of identity and things like that. But fundamentally, they have no political economy read, right? And they're using a kind of mysticism to kind of like deal with everything. And it's like, ends becoming bullshit. But then I think to Jay's point about things like Trump, he becomes mystical too, even for the people who oppose him, right? And Teal or Land or all these people. And it's like, it's now gotten into this soup of mysticism, even the anti-AI, the pro-AI. Yeah, John Bellamy Foster wrote a really good piece called The Fetishism of AI in Monthly Review. Like, I think it's like 3-4 months ago. I highly recommend that one because he's kind of going at both sides of it. And I thought it was really, 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 really good in what he was breaking down there.
Yeah, same. All right. Anything else? Want to do more OJ speculation, Hiram? You got like
no. Nah. I think the juice. We've covered the juice, and we've covered Kyle Reese extensively. The last thing is just, you guys remember Hitchbot, the hitchhiking robot from 2013?
No.
Mm-mm.
I was like, is that the Terminator's grandfather? There was a little hitchhiking robot from Canada. You don't remember this? It was a little robot, and they made it in Canada, and they just set it out into the wild by itself. And the robot would hitchhike, and he hitchhiked all the way across the country, and he was like in the United States and stuff. And then they would just set him down, and he would just be walking and would hitchhike all his way and see as far as he got until he got to Philly. And then they caught him in Philly and they decapitated him.
No, I did not know this at all.
Yeah, Hitchbot.
What is this?
Shout out to Philly also for decapitating. I mean, we're gonna do. I'm gonna have Sterling on, and we're doing a LeBron to Philly episode. Not to do a bunch of silliness, but actually to talk about all the fucking
I'm gonna be in
discourse
the
around
crazy. Just letting you know right now. I'm gonna be in the comment section heavy. but go ahead, Jack. Go ahead. Heavy with my Hand of God t-shirt on. But go ahead.
No, but like the way that people talk about Philly, right? But also that it is also, I think, tied to the fact that Philly would decapitate the fucking Hitchbot. Like,
yeah, they beat it up. They found it and they beat it up and then they decapitated it. Basically, so what it was like a group of folks that, I don't know, it was a company or something in Canada. They made this little robot, and it was like a social experiment kind of thing, and also technology. They're like, we're gonna send him out into the world, and he's just gonna travel across the country, and people knew, so like you pick him up and you give him a ride, and you drop him off somewhere else, and he just walks, and I think he's like solar powered or whatever. And the idea was see how far he can. And he's got like a camera, and so he could record and stuff. And so he traveled from Canada, traveled all the way into the United States, and was just walking, and then got to Philly, and Philadelphians were like, "What's that?" And they beat it up, and they killed it. And maybe shout out to Philly being ahead of time. Be like, look, we don't need no Terminators here. We don't need no clankers.
That's that Luddite energy, huh? Let's find out.
It's like pre-gentrified Fishtown. He probably ended up in Fishtown. They were like, you don't belong here. That's what they would do.
I feel better
The Knicks ain't going to the White House, bro. The Knicks ain't going to the White House. No, yeah, no, we definitely celebrate. We are absolutely definitely celebrating, yo.
Yeah, Hiram and I haven't had our Knicks hug
no,
yet.
I've been going ham. I've been going ham. Just no one has called me on YouTube to talk about the Knicks, but I've been going ham on my other social medias. We are celebrating for the rest of my life. For the rest of my life. This is it. Yeah, I've been doing all that. And I've been posting all kinds of memes on my Instagram. This is, you know what I'm saying? Jalen Brunson's the king. Jalen Brunson's the god. I cried that night and then woke up the next morning and cried again. I'll probably cry another time. Who knows? I watch Nick highlights all the time. All the time. But yeah, Hitchbot is yo, that New York Knicks team, man. Let me just tell you this right now, Jared, so you can break this into your conversation about LeBron James. The Sixers are doing what they got to do. That's where sports are. The amount of like private equity that's entered professional sports, but also college sports is going to the world is going to change within the next 5 years. The world is going to change. Every aspect of our lives is changing, right? Because of political economy and stuff, the amount of money and private equity is going into all this stuff. This is how Jalen Brunson ends up supposedly leaving Boston, because the private equity firm that owns the Boston Celtics, right, cutting, and he ends up. All that to say is that the Philadelphia 76ers are building a super team to go win a championship because they got swept in Madison Square Garden South, right? The New York Knicks won their championship off the power of friendship and brotherhood. There was no super team that was built. That was just pure
comradeship,
friendship and brotherhood. And we will not see another championship won like that ever again, just because of the amount of money and stuff that is happening. If you're following what the LA Dodgers did recently, right, which is most likely going to cause a lockout for Major League Baseball.
I don't think we're going to have baseball next year.
No, I think we're going to have baseball next year.
I think the whole season, I think it's going to be just like, was it 90 what? What year was the
94?
94. I think we're having a canceled season.
Yeah, so it's, everything has changed. So the New York Knickerbockers are the last team that you will ever see who won it the right way, through friendship, through brotherhood, camaraderie, right? Through believing in themselves, right? And that is the example for children all over. And then LeBron is coming to Philly, and that's cool. And you do what you got to do to try to stop Jalen Brunson. But never forget that the Knicks did it through friendship and through brotherhood. And we're never going to see that again.
The problem is I'm not a real Sixers fan, and so I can't really do the back and forth on this, because I'm not. I don't have it in me in the same way as people who are really from Philly do.
No, but, I'm not knocking what the Sixers are doing at all. Just to be very clear, I'm not knocking what they're doing. I think, do you go for it? You know what I'm saying? Like, we got ours. It's different. It's different, right? And I'm just the power of brotherhood and friendship for the viewers who are watching. Believe in yourselves, believe in your friends, right? Look at the New York Knickerbockers, teach your children, and we're going to beat these robots and this AI in the future.
So this is the reality. Unfortunately, my Zionist occupied team, and that may soon be moving to Kansas City, it sounds like, in which case I will just become a Sixers fan because I'm not rooting for the Kansas City Trailblazers.
That's real?
So,
that's real?
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know if it'll happen, but I heard
okay.
Yeah, but it is real because
why not Seattle?
Because the league will want the owners of the team get an expansion fee when there's a new team. And it's going to be like $8 billion for Seattle and for Vegas. So they want those full paydays, but they won't necessarily mind if Tom Dundon, who's the subprime mortgage lender who owns the Blazers now, if he moves it to Kansas City because he thinks it's a better market or whatever, which is where it seems like it's going. But
probably stadium deals and all that type of shit with it.
Yeah, I guess Kansas City already has an NBA ready stadium, and the Blazers have the oldest stadium in the league, and that the negotiation to update it is not going well. And, so.
That's wild, man. Because the Blazers have been around for a very long time. That's
71.
But because of that reason, the whole Zionist, I haven't watched my beloved New York Mets in like 2 years because of their like the owners' deep ties to like settlements and Zionism and stuff like that. And so it's getting very hard to watch sports. And the private equity just changing everything.
Well, they're about to have a huge fire sale right now anyway, too. The Mets are about to dump it all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's. I mean, absolutely right. I mean, it is just, I think it'll be interesting in. I know this is like way outside of the conversation that we started on, but I think it'll be interesting to see, like, at what point do they change the laws to make it where you can get more, where they can get like more Saudi or Qatari or whatever money or Israeli like into sports teams, because right now in most leagues there's a cap on it's pretty low on how much a percentage can be owned by a foreign person or company. But I think they will probably ease that a little bit to just bring even more money into these leagues. But yeah, all of these are billion dollar corporations at this point, basically.
Insane.
That's what they are, corporations. And even college sports too, right? Because University of Rutgers football team is hemorrhaging money, right? They're like in debt. So you got a lot of college teams that are in debt, partially because of the NIL stuff, but just the way things are money getting in bed with private equity. And folks like, what does private equity have to do with college sports? But now this season, the teams are going to have advertisement patches on their jerseys, right? Like Notre Dame is SoFi. I forgot who else. But for the first time ever, right, like college teams are going to have these corporate patches on their jerseys because the amount of private equity money that's going into these teams, not even the schools, it's like the teams, right, to do this. But private equity is just there to liquidate. Private equity doesn't like build, they just liquidate and fire sale everything. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens to college sports. Especially now with the SEC and folks talking about seceding from the NCAA. And I know we're going way too far away, right? But the whole question of like breaking up the NCAA and seceding and forming their own super leagues with the best college football teams that then become like a legitimate minor leagues for the NFL. Like everything is going to change in the next 5-10 years. The whole world that we know is going to be completely different.
Join an organization.
At least we have the New York Knicks, who are the last ones who did it, who did the traditional way, who did it the right way. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to them, man. Friendship and brotherhood. And sisterhood and friendship, peoplehood. The people,
hood.
The Knicks represent the people.
Hood. Just call it
the hood. At the end of the day, comes back to hey, real quick, we'll end with this. I had a friend in high school when I was 16 years old. She lived in Brooklyn in the pink houses. And Tuma, you probably know about the pink houses in Brooklyn, right?
Yep.
Just nothing good happens in pink houses if you ain't from pink houses. And her little brother was 10 years old. He was hanging outside. He comes to the house at like 11 o'clock at night. And their mom was working, so she's like the secondary mom. She's yelling. I'm on the phone with her. She's yelling at him like, "What are you doing coming home this late? Yada, yada, yada. You know what can happen to you. You're only 10. Blah, 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 blah." He says something to her. She's like, "Oh, my God. You know what this little boy just told me?" And I'm like, "What?" Because he says, "If you be good to the hood will be good to you." And that was his way of telling her, I'm okay in this courtyard till 11 o'clock. Because if you're good to the hood will be good to you. And that's the lesson from the New York Knicks and Hiram Rivera here on this Terminator Day. Ultimately, that's what's going to save us from this future that we're headed towards. You be good to the hood, and the hood will be good to you. Leave them robots, AI, and games alone. Lean on your friendships and your peoplehood, and we're going to make it out of here. Kyle Reese style. Rest in peace, Kyle Reese.
I should wrap it there. There was one more thought I remembered, which is that the Judgment Day, right, which is August 29th, 1997. The significance of that date was that it was the anniversary of exact date that the Soviet Union successfully tested its first nuclear device. So that was something I didn't know until diving into the research of this film, is that
I never knew that. Wow.
Yeah. That was where they pulled that out. And it was like less than a month after they turned on Skynet, right? So the idea that artificial intelligence would immediately figure out humans were evil and launch nukes like right off the bat, like, anyway.
They pulled the plug. Skynet pulled the plug.
All right. On that note, that's a good place for us to close out. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Hiram. This has been great. Appreciate you.
Thanks, everybody.
What do we say next couple weeks? What do we say next week, M2Me? Big is next week. Wall Street will be the week after that. Yeah. So we'll get into the equity and all of that piece then. And then tomorrow, if you are around, M2Me, myself, and Gemma DeCristo are going to do our episode on Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. So, if you are into discussing that or listening to us.
See that or no? I saw M2Me. No, don't.
I mean, if you want to, but it's very long.
I'm just waiting for college football to start. So, all right, y'all.
All right.